refresh these feeds. Okay, timer is running. There we go, folks. If anybody's coming into the chat, we're glad you're here. Very exciting day for us. Now, let's see here. Excuse me. Getting ready to send out the text message. The text message alert. As you know, folks, the big tech companies, platforms, they don't want to notify you. They want nothing less than to notify you, my dear, dear friend, that this show is going live. And that's why we recommend you sign up for the text message alert system. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. That's Canary to 877-740-3226 to get an alert straight to your text message box so you can tune in no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. Who do we got coming in on the chat? Okay, Prodigal Hegelian, welcome. Enoch 87, Denise, Furf, Adam 42 is in the chat. There he is. We got the chat going on all over the place. We got Rumble, we got YouTube, we got Twitch. 122 go to. What's going on over on the Twitch? Folks, remember, the Twitch exists. I know it's sort of the neglected stepchild of our platforms, but go check it out. It's good to subscribe to many of these things, just in case. You never know.
There we go. There's the chat.
Subscribe to woo.
Sorry about that.
That's right, folks. We've got a guest today. We're very excited about it. We hope you are too. You certainly will have heard of this man from our very distinguished and fawning descriptions of the fathers of the genre. All right, how's the timer going? Timer is down. You know what that means, folks? We're getting the show started, so buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is November 13th. 2023. We are live to tape on episode 688. And today, the Podfather. Signing on from off the grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy Basil, and you are not crazy.
And my name is Gonz, director of the Age of Deceit films, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from California to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And today's emergent phenomena, well, it's none other than the Adam Curry. There's no other emergent phenomenon to be mentioned, but we'll get to that in a moment. Thank you, Adam, for being here. We'll officially introduce you in a second, but we have to do these things at the top just to make sure the algos. Yeah, we are slaves to the system, and so we are forced to do things like disclaimers. Yes.
It's time to do the disclaimer. Let's go, bro.
It's time for a disclaimer.
Now listen up, YouTube.
That's right. And just for all the content moderators and censorship managers out there, be they robots or humans, everything you hear on this show comes directly from the mainstream corporate news media. We do not claim to be experts on healthcare, geopolitics, military strategy, corporate law, or the moral and ethical implications of any of these topics, nor do we implicitly or explicitly support or subscribe to any sources or narratives containing misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, as defined by the Department of Homeland Security. We're good boys. All right, YouTube, we're good boys. All right, Gonz, and today, on such a day as this, I think that I will let you have the honor of giving us the rundown.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I will not play the jingle because it introduces you, so we'll just jump right into it. This is episode 165 of Canary Cry Radio and 688 of Canary Cry News Talk. I know it's very confusing. We did this to ourselves. And maybe if we had the direction of our guest today, we might have not done that. But
Gons.
Yeah, I know. Well, just like how none of us would be here if it wasn't for God creating Adam and then subsequently Eve, it is true that this podcast would not exist without God creating Adam Curry, the Proto-sapien of podcasting, a pioneer in parsing politics, breaking down the philosophies behind the propaganda. ChatGPT said he was, quote, the symbol of cool for an entire generation glued to their television screens. That's the 1980s, folks. Not only did he co-develop the value for value model, which is how this show is alive, he also co-developed the technological groundwork for the Adam Curry. Welcome to Canary Cry Radio News Talk, the whole deal.
Hello, California. How you doing? How you doing there in that horrible part of the country?
It's all right. There's a lot
no,
more.
It's not.
No, it's good. I think we're exporting Newsom to the rest of the country, so I'm really looking forward to how that plays
San
out.
San Francisco's looking good again. It's nice and clean, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, the psyop is working.
Apocalyptic. See, thank you, Adam. It's about time that he hears that from somebody else. He's sort of started tuning out my calls for him to move out of California. So let this be a lesson to you, Gons.
Well, I will say the step one was convincing my parents. And of course, my parents being Asian parents, they expected me to be a doctor. I mean, there was no other. It was either doctor or millionaire in some form or fashion. And they're still waiting for the PhD. But I did receive my PhD for media deconstruction yesterday. And I was very thankful for that. Thank you to Paul G, who did that on my behalf on the No Agenda show.
That was the first one that was gifted. That was interesting. I like that.
Very cool. And I sent a screenshot to my parents, by the way, and they immediately, oh, what's this all about? Oh, can you put that in your profile? I'm like, I can actually. So
I got to tell you, I got mine the other day in the mail, and I took a picture and tweeted it out. X that slashed it. I think we slash on X. Is that what we do? We don't tweet anymore. We slash on X. And
that's what I'll call it now.
And I'd say 30% of the reaction, I got a lot of response. I mean, it was like 3,000 people liked it. I mean, that's pretty big for me. I have no blue check, even though I have 68,000 followers, I guess.
Classic.
30% went, wow, look at those teeth. And there was definitely 30% that, without really looking at it, went, congratulations, that's so cool, man. Wow, you must have worked really hard. People just see, oh, a diploma, he's got his PhD, good on you. They didn't even look at it. They just considered it was real. It's like it is real, but it's not a scholastic PhD.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very funny. My degree from college has never even left the envelope since they sent it to me. But this one is going right in the middle of the trophy wall. Yeah, folks, thanks to Paul G, who, by the way, will be getting knighted later on in this episode. He's been a longtime producer, so stick around for that, Paul G. But the No Agenda show has been obviously a big influence on this show. We started doing CCNT, Adam, in 2016. It was just a 29-minute show once a week. It was literally just a practice in seeing if we could do something consistently. Mm-hmm. And then we started listening to No Agenda, really getting into No Agenda about 2017, like, oh, these guys are really doing it. They're doing the real thing. This is it. But it wasn't until 2020 that we finally had the guts to go sort of long form into the whole thing. Of course, we are locked inside, and the whole COVID thing, we had a lot to say. So yes, indeed, there are people out there who send us very angry emails about how we copied No Agenda and things like this. And we say, yes, we did. That's exactly what we did. And that's exactly what, the value for value system came from. It's where the knightings came from. You guys did it right. You nailed it in one. And we hope you're flattered that you were, such an influence.
I'm incredibly flattered. I love that. John and I are Look, I'm 59 now, so I'm glad that some younger dudes are picking it up. I figure you guys are in the 30 age range.
I just
psychic too.
I just hit 40, so you know.
Just hit 40. Okay.
I'm 40.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it, Adam. For those who might be watching this, maybe some of the old timers, we love our boomers around here. We love our Gen X, and they're thinking, man, this guy looks so familiar. Who is this guy? Will you give us a little bit of your background? Remind everybody why you are sort of ingrained into their brains.
Well, yes, for the Xers, and certainly for some boomers. I consider myself to be Gen X with boomer tendencies. I'm right on that cusp of 1964, though September, so I feel that I do belong in the X category.
Love it.
When I was 19, in the 1984, I was living in the Netherlands, where I moved there with my parents when I was 7, and so I grew up there and found myself, after an illustrious pirate radio career on television, all of a sudden doing a weekly television show called Countdown, which was, that was a phenomenon by itself, because it later was syndicated via early satellite to all of Europe. And in 1986, MTV US contacted me and said, would you like to come and work for us at MTV? And I said, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. Where? New York? Oh, yeah, definitely. So 4 months later, I was in New York, in Manhattan, in the middle of Hell's Kitchen, in a very bad time in New York's history. It was dirty, and you could still easily get killed on Times Square. You couldn't, fall down and bounce back from the rubber tiles.
Oh, the good old days.
Oh, peep shows, everything was great. Pimps, everything was awesome. And which I used to walk across Times Square almost every Saturday night at midnight. My buddy did a show on Light FM, WLTW Light FM, and we go over there and we smoke weed while he was on the air, and we just hang out. So I'd walk across Times Square to get there, and it was a lot of interesting folks for sure. And so that lasted about 7 years, I think. I was on the air at MTV. And built up a radio career, and left MTV in late 93, maybe 94, and started an internet company. But I would say for most at the time, this is when MTV just went from kind of cable was very different in those days. It was just starting off. It wasn't seen as real television. In fact, the industry laughed about it. Who's ever going to advertise? It's not real television. That's not over the air. And MTV went to basic cable and found themselves in, I think, 40 million households in the US, which meant a couple of things. One, it meant that you got cable, you got your MTV as a part of that. In fact, there was a very successful campaign that MTV did called Call Up Your Cable Company, say, I want my MTV. And that worked very well for them. That also meant that there's a lot of stuff we couldn't do. So we had to be careful of what we said, couldn't be too, off the wall. There was, basically had to mind your language, which is why the show I'm probably most known for, Headbangers Ball, came on Saturday night at midnight, because that was after the watershed hour, 10 o'clock. And at that point, you could show videos that might depict women in scantily clad women, or perhaps even some satanic looking stuff. Now that I think back on it, although I would say pretty much everybody I met was far from satanic and far from crazy. Most of them were very accomplished musicians, very serious about their craft. There were some who were in the drug-addled phase, but in general, it was a pretty good community. And so, because of just that moment in time before video became a commodity, MTV was it. It was on. People, teenagers in America, had MTV on 24 hours a day if they could.
I remember.
We went over to each other's houses to go and watch it.
I remember I was 11 years old, and this is a very distinct memory for me. It was 1994. I was traveling to Maui for a swim competition thing. I was selected to represent Southern California. I'm out there, and my memory is just the hotel rooms, every single TV, MTV, and 2 songs. Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun, on
Black
repeat.
Hole Sun. Yep.
Repeat. And Lisa Loeb, You Say, I Only Hear What I Want To. Everybody knew every single word because it was constantly on. And I would imagine, you know, looking back now, I was like, wow, they figured out something, because it was, everybody knew those songs. Everybody had MTV on their TVs. So wow. Yeah. Interesting times. You're bringing me back to my childhood, Adam.
Well, so I was probably not even there by the time you were really consciously
Sure,
watching.
yeah,
Probably left at that point.
Yeah. That's interesting. Continue. What happened next? I know you ran into the Apple situation, getting podcasting off the ground. How did you get into all that?
There's a lot. You're skipping over a lot.
Okay. Okay.
You're skipping over my most important history.
All right, let's do it.
So first of all, you have to understand that radio didn't come naturally for me. I built my first transmitter when I was like 13, I guess. Shoot, man, I wonder if I still have that. It was a Radio Shack 100 projects in one. And it had an FM transmitter. And hold on a second. Do you mind? Let me just see if I have.
No, go for it.
No, go for it. See, folks,
yes,
this is the deal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Nice.
Okay.
Didn't even have to go digging around for it.
No, it's just right there.
I forgot that I had this. So here it is. Am I mirrored, or can you see it properly?
Oh, we could see it. We could see the whole thing.
Looking
101 electronic project kit.
Wow.
And this is no one. I've not shown this to anybody.
Oh my goodness!
So it came with this huge project manual, right?
Wow.
And in the back somewhere was the FM transmitter. I'd have to look that one up. But here you can see the concept. So it has all these different electronic components. Here's your resistors, here's your capacitors, here's your variable capacitor, here's your photonic cell, here's your meter, here's your relay, here's a transformer, a couple of transistors, and one integrated circuit. And it has all these different length wires. And so you follow the directions and would say, well, these are little springs, these here, right? So they would say connect a blue wire from the plus side of C61 to, whatever the next part was in the circuit. And then once you did all that, if you were lucky to hit your little batteries, then all these wires are falling out, then it would work. And so that's how I learned to make my first FM radio transmitter.
Oh my gosh,
wow.
That's incredible. Where did that go? Why didn't I get this thing? We're getting the history of the history here.
Dude, look at the two dudes here who are the examples.
This Spock
you never
haircuts.
look like that. That's how I looked. Yeah, you got your smart haircut. You got, look at, we're doing some cool stuff here. Yeah, we're experimenting after school. Look at those collars. Look at the collar there.
It kind of reminds me of
respectable
Operation.
young men.
Yes.
Little did we know that they would go on to start major tech companies and take over the world.
Possibly. And that's how I got into my first computers with the Sinclair ZX80. I don't have that anymore, unfortunately. Hold on.
He's going back to the treasure chest.
It is a treasure chest. It is a treasure chest.
And the headphones stay on.
So that's how I started. And then, I learned quickly that the antenna is kind of your friend. So I learned how antennas work, wavelengths, and I would broadcast. I got a record player, and I used that as the input, and I'd string up, a dipole antenna. And my mom, actually, bless her, rest her soul, she would drive around the neighborhood with me in the car to see how far my signal reached. And then I came, come back, and there were some kids there. You have to understand, the Netherlands had no radio. It had all government-controlled airwaves. It had 4 stations. It had 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were named that way. One was, I think, 1 was News Talk. 2 was maybe easy listening. 3 was the pop station, which came on at 7 a.m. and went off at 11 p.m. and played polka music. And then 4 was the classical, which of course had the best signal. And my parents had records and stuff around, and so I just put some on. And anyway, so the kids were listening, so I got another record player. I don't know where I got it from, and built my own mixer and got a microphone eventually and started just doing kind of like little radio shows. And I remember very well that I sounded horrible. It's like, oh, my voice is, if you ever hear your voice for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, like, oh, yeah. It sounds horrible. So I would practice for hours and hours and hours. And I would listen to Wolfman Jack from Radio Luxembourg on I think it was on shortwave, long wave. So I had all kinds of radios to listen to stuff. So it's always been technology and radio at the same time. So television was actually just a fluke how that happened. But I grew up in the pirate radio scene in Amsterdam and built a little persona called John Holden because I didn't sound good in Dutch. My Dutch wasn't all that great. Wasn't my native language. But being John Holden, the 24-year-old black guy who drove a Harley in Amsterdam, made a lot of sense. And I didn't. And by the way, that was not me misgendering. People just heard me and said, "Oh, you're the black guy on Decibel Radio." Yeah, yeah, 96.2. And so from there, I got into the official Dutch broadcasting system, and at that point, it was actually. It's a long story how that system works, but basically the airtime is, and to this day still is, chopped up amongst organizations based upon how many members you have. And the membership it has to be at least $10, €10. Well, then it was 10 guilders, €10 a month. I think you had to pay. And so the biggest organizations were all religious. So we had the Roman Catholics, you had the evangelicals. And their programming was akin to that. And then you had these guys who were the OG pirates on the North Sea in the pirate radio days, and that's the 70s. Radio Veronica, Radio Caroline, Radio Mi Amigo. They were in international waters, and they were broadcasting to the UK, to France, to the Netherlands, the mainland. And these Dutch guys from Radio Veronica, they had such popularity that they got hundreds of thousands of people to send them, $10 a month, and so they were able to get airtime, and they got, I think, one day they got Fridays on the pop station, and they also had television all of a sudden, and so they had to do something, so they just did music on television, and that's the show that I wound up hosting. And so then
that's incredible. The pirate radio stuff is absolutely incredible. It's always fun to hear podcasters and broadcasters, and almost inevitably it's like, I would sit with a tape recorder and record little radio shows. I mean, that was, looking back, that was sort of built into my childhood. Never did I think that the technology would come to a place to allow me to actually do it professionally. But I mean, you're talking about going back to the Stone Age and building your own transmitters. It's so much fun hearing those stories.
Well, so in 1987, when I was at MTV, and I had already been introduced to computers and modems. I actually built my first modem. Back in the day, kids, before it just came out of the air, you had to get your phone and you had to put it into, I have one of those too somewhere. You had to put your phone into a cradle, and and that way you could communicate with other computers, very slow speed, 75.
Was this normal to build? Like, was this the normal way to get into these things, was to build them, or were you building them while other people were buying them?
Oh yeah, you had to build everything. I had a bulletin board system. So you had, I had 2 phone lines, so you could dial in with your computer, you could browse messages. Then you'd log out. Someone else could dial in. Your computer would be continuously redialing to see if there was a spot open on the bulletin board system. There was something called FidoNet. I mean, we didn't have email. When I was a kid, we didn't have email. We had FidoNet, and we liked it. So I would address a message to you on FidoNet. I'd upload it to either my bulletin board or another one. And then overnight, these bulletin boards would forward messages to each other. And so that by the next morning, with a little bit of luck, you would log into your local bulletin board with a local phone call. Of course, we had to have local phone calls because it was, long distance was very expensive. And then you would see that message from me and you'd reply, and it would probably take a day for it to get to me. That's early messaging, how that worked. And
we're spoiled. So we're spoiled is what I'm learning right now.
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. But I was enthralled by this. I loved it. The way we loaded computer programs back in the day was on audio cassettes. And it sounded very much like if you've ever had a dial-up modem, all these bits and bytes just recorded.
Yeah.
And the BBC, they even had their own computer called the Acorn. I think it was the Acorn or BBC computer. But they also did it for the Commodore, which I had later. And they would broadcast for 3 minutes a program. And so on the FM, you'd hear for 3 minutes. And now the BBC will broadcast this new program, which is a word processor. And you record that on your cassette. You put that cassette, and you put it in, you connect it to your computer, and it would read it in. What? It was usually basic. It was a basic program, the basic language.
I didn't realize they did that.
And so that was a great way of mass distribution of software. It was phenomenal.
Wow.
So I kind of grew up in that age. Gaming came along, and I tried gaming, and I went, oh, no. I remember distinctly, I'm putting this away because I will become addicted, and I'll never do anything else but gaming. And I was never into gaming. But in '87, when I was in New York, I bought a Mac Plus. This was the new hot computer of the time, with a 20 megabyte external SCSI drive. SCSI being SCSI, look it up. It's a connector. It's about this thick with a huge cable, and you connected that on one end to the Mac and the other end to this big 20 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes, this big, huge drive. And I had a modem. And at that point, there was America Online and CompuServe, and there were computer services you could dial into. And I said, I'm really gonna get wired. I want to have the latest news when I'm doing stuff on MTV. I want to be far ahead of everybody. And technically I was. MTV at the time had a Wang computer system. And the way the Wang worked is the scripts would be written. I didn't really use scripts, but at least you had, bullet points of what video was next, or if you're tossing to a commercial. And the producers would write these scripts in the Wang at 1775 Broadway. They'd put them on the Wang system so they could be printed out at the studio, which was kind of near the river and in a dingy neighborhood. And then these pieces of paper would be printed out and then put on a conveyor belt with a camera above it. And there was an operator who would vary the speed of this conveyor belt, and that was a teleprompter. This is way before teleprompters were just computers hooked up to a monitor. So it was literally a piece of paper with big type on it, and it would roll underneath this camera. And that's what I was looking at in the camera. So that was early teleprompter. When I was a kid, green screen was blue screen.
You know what I love about you? If you'll forgive me and allow me to say one thing I find sort of an enigma about Adam Curry is this incredible, almost impossible mixture between cool culture, coolness. I mean, the MTV stuff, the music videos, the hair was just like the epitome of cool in its time. And then at the same time, you're like this mad scientist getting into obscure, strange technologies and sort of like building it yourself. You're a complicated fella. You're more than just a pretty face, Adam.
Oh, well, thank you. Although she laying down? Oh. Yes, thank you. I am more than just a pretty face. My wife agrees. She just let the dog in. The dog wanted to be in the studio, was barking like, I want to be in this. Is she laying on her bed? Yeah. Oh, good. She has a new bed.
Cute.
I've always considered myself a nerd. I was very awkward. I've always had kind of Tourette's tics, which was very difficult on television. I really had to concentrate. luckily the MTV segments were short. That was just uncool. I was super uncool nerd loser until and this was when I was in high school, until someone had connected the dots and said, wait a minute, you are John Holden on Decibel Radio? That's you? And overnight I became cool.
Wow. It's a good way to do it.
It was quite interesting. But I've never forgotten where I came from. And so, well, anyway.
Yeah. So and it was sort of that obsession, that technology obsession that makes your role in podcasting make so much sense.
So we'll move forward and we'll get to the podcasting part. So MTV was a whirlwind. I mean, I've met and interviewed or hung out with almost every massive artist you can think of the 80s and the early 90s. Just fantastic. It was a great time. And all the while I was at home on the internet because I had that, I started in 87 with the Mac Plus with the external SCSI drive. And I'd heard about this thing called the internet. People were telling me on CompuServe, oh yeah, you need to be on the internet. It's really hard to get on, but that's where all the cool kids are. So I figured out how to get on, which at the time consisted of dialing into a provider. Then you had to start up a PPP or SLIP connection, which then reversed into your TCP IP stack, which you had to have on your computer. And then you could basically get a terminal, a text-based terminal. And they had email, which was phenomenal. So, and that was it was internet email. It was email. And my first email address was curryco@panix.net. Panix was the PANIX was the provider in New York, and we had things like Usenet, which was all news groups, and it was kind of like a bulletin board, same thing, store and forward overnight. So you'd post something, and then in the morning you go in and you could check all the replies that had come in. It was not real time. And the thing that really caught my eye was this protocol called Gopher. And it was developed by the University of Minnesota. And Gopher gave you, you start with a menu, and then you could, with your arrow keys or typing on a number, you could select something from the menu, and it would connect you to another computer somewhere else. And so you had, you could connect to different computers at different universities. Basically, they're the only places that had internet connectivity. And so that's where my audience was. They were literally at universities watching MTV, which at the time, by the way, MTV ratings, they didn't count ratings in universities. So I was interacting with my actual audience at universities who were watching MTV, and they had very different ideas of what they thought the #1 video should be. But it was this Gopher thing that was hypertext. So you'd link from one to the other. And I just found it fascinating that, by clicking on a menu item, you could see it like connecting, and then, and it'd give me another screen and another menu. And ultimately a menu would bring you to another menu, and there might be a Word document or ASCII art or something. And I just love this idea. And I bumped into some guys, also online, who were in Virginia. They were they had a little office above a Chinese restaurant called Digex, and they said, "Well, why don't you set up your own server, and then you can have your own Gopher server?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty cool." And so they got me a Headless Sun 3, and they said, "Well, you need a domain name." I said, "How about MTV.com?" Okay. At that time, you literally sent a guy who maintained a list. You sent him an email, said, "I'd like to register MTV.com," and he'd say, "Okay," and he just sent it back. There's no cost or anything. And I registered a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh my
I registered
gosh.
Curry.com, Elvis.com. I registered all kinds of cool stuff. So I had MTV.com, and I learned Unix, and I set up the Gopher D daemon, and I set up MTV.com, and I was publishing stuff on that I picked up, little screens of articles of stuff. And what was cool is I was promoting, and I had Adam at MTV.com. You could email me, Adam at MTV.com. Now MTV came to me and said, "What are you doing with this thing?" I said, "Well, it's just a little hobby. I'm just communicating." And communicating with kids at universities. And I said, oh, that's okay. We don't really care about the internet. We have the AOL keyword. I'm like, okay, all right, so you're good to go there. But then I got an email from the University of Minnesota. They said, you can't use our Gopher server. It's commercial use. You need to pay a commercial license, $5,000. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm just messing around here. This is not MTV proper. This is just me. I really don't have $5,000. And we came to an agreement that if I wore the Gopher T-shirt on MTV once, and you can still find it on YouTube, then they would waive the license for the Gopher server.
Oh my gosh.
That carried on. So, but to me, this was broadcasting. This was pirate stuff. You know, it wasn't audio or video, but it was still broadcasting. And I'm a broadcaster, and I love the technology angle of it. Then I got an email from this guy who was at University of Champaign, Illinois, called Mark Andreessen. And he said, dude, we've got this thing called a browser. It's called Mosaic, and it's perfect for you to set up an HTTPD server on MTV.com. And so he sent me to the source, and I, unpacked it and compiled it, installed it. I could do that, and I set up MTV.com, and that just started off a whole new layer, because now it was graphical, and now Gopher all of a sudden came alive with links, and we had flashing text because we had the blink tag, and we had the redball.gif, little menu items, all these great things. He's like, this is so cool. And then at home I had a 56K relay, so it wasn't fast. It was about as fast as the fastest modem, but you didn't have to dial in. It was a dedicated connection. And a guy I met over the internet who was at Sun Microsystems in San Francisco, he said, check this out, bro. And he streamed me a song. I wish I remember what song it was, but he streamed me a song, and a player popped up on my screen, and it started playing, and it was choppy, and I'm like, oh my God, this is broadcasting. And from that moment on, I'm like, this is broadcasting. It's not there yet. I've already seen how fast this is going. I need to be here. And I quit MTV. I left, which they didn't like. Of course, I quit on the air, which wasn't really nice. They immediately sued me for the domain name, which if they just asked me, I would have given it. So I countersued them. And I started my first company called OnRamp. And that company, I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I did it with my radio syndicators, Media America, Ron Hartenbaum, Gary Schoenfeld, the best Jews in the business. They taught me a lot about business. And we also took off Fridays really early, so I dug those guys. And they really taught me about business, like selling ads and doing all this stuff. And the radio stuff was pretty successful. It was a syndicated show. I met so I had one employee, Brad Serling he came from Cornell, I think. And we had a couple of ISDN lines, and we were just trying to figure out, what are we going to do here? And then I met a guy named Ron Bloom, who was he was a guitar player from Atlanta, had been in LA. He'd, had produced some records, a Jewish boy from Atlanta, which was kind of funny. He was Shalom, y'all. And, but he was able to commercialize the stuff that I was seeing. And we did that by he had contacts in the music business. So we went to NARIS, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, in 96, I think, 95. And we talked to Mike Green. He's long gone. They do the Grammys. And he said, we want to cybercast the Grammys. What's a cybercast? Well, we're going to have pictures, and we're going to have a website. And at the time, there was this thing called See You, See Me, which was a video conferencing system, about 1 frame a second, an idea of being live. But the point was, we would have people at the Grammys, backstage, taking pictures, reporting, writing posts. We didn't have blogs then, so it would just be update a page. We'd have some jerky video. And they said, okay, we'll give you the license. That'll be $5 million. We said, we have $0. And they said, okay, we'll give you the license, and you can sell ads. You have to give us 30% of the ads, but you can't go to our existing advertisers. So we found.
You're talking about you're talking about like a proto version of a media company of which there are thousands now.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
this is the ancestor, the first squiggling tadpole that has turned into the sort of amphibious monster that is now companies.
Yes.
But this is incredible history.
This is not much discussed because people usually skip from MTV to podcasting.
Yeah, right.
And there's more to this story if you want to hear it.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
100%.
100%.
All right, 100%.
You fell right into that one.
Sure did.
Gons.
Sure did.
I mean,
Yep.
we got questions, but documenting this history is like, I mean, this is a pretty big deal for us. This is the history that has made our lives even possible. Much less, the lives of listeners and stuff like that too. So, yeah, we really appreciate it. We're into it.
So we sell a sponsorship to Visa Card and Casio. And Casio was important because they had the first digital camera where you could, take a picture, take it out on a big card, stick the card into a reader, and then read it into your computer. We think we had laptops, and then you could, crop the photo, make it, size it way down so it would load fast enough. And we did. So we had that Cybercast, and we brought a T1 line into the Shrine Auditorium, which was 1 megabit per second. So that was a big deal at the time. Wow, these guys are bringing in the internet. And so that was very successful. And we had a team of 8, and we were all in LA, and it was just a great time, and everybody was happy. The advertisers, the sponsors, they use it to promote how hip they were. And so we thought, wow, this is it. Stuff's going to happen. And the phone just kind of stayed quiet for a couple of weeks. Nothing's happening. I'm like, what are you going to do? And then the phone rings, and I pick up and says, yes, this is Robert McCauley from Anheuser-Busch. Can I talk to someone in sales? Oh, sure, Mr. McCauley. Hold on. Put my other hat on. Hi, this is sales.
Your voice a little bit.
And Bob he ran marketing for Anheuser-Busch. And he said, we want to be on the internet. We're not quite sure what that means. I saw your Grammy stuff. We want to be there. Can you come to St. Louis? We want to talk to you about it. And so that wound up being a great relationship. So I built Budweiser.com, Budlight.com. We came up with, it's a content rich company. Forget it. We had the Brewmeister. We learned a lot about beer. We learned a lot about corporate America, but they have sports, and they have all kinds of intellectual property that we could use the rights to. We would do on location stuff at drag races. It was incredibly fun. In fact, one of the fun things was, we were always looking for how can we make something really interactive. And the first thing, we just wanted to have Budweiser.com on their bottles and cans. And I remember Anheuser-Busch the third, I think it was the third, his nickname Grinder. And he's like, there's never going to be, see this can, this logo, there's never going to be anything else on this ever. No, this is holy ground. Son.
Oh, geez.
And
little did he know what was coming.
Yeah, so you know where I'm going with that. So we did have, and eventually, other drink manufacturers started putting their URLs on cans and on television. So of course, Anheuser-Busch came around. But what was cool is we had learned from the manufacturing process that this barcode on every can and bottle actually showed you down to the quarter hour when that bottle or beer or a can came off the line. And so we put a little widget on the website at Budweiser.com, which was find out when your beer was born. So that became the born on date. To this day, still on every can and bottle of Budweiser. To this day,
wow.
Your born on date. So it was that kind of stuff. And from that, of course, then we got Reeboks. We built PlanetReebok.com. We did the first online ticketing with Continental Airlines. We built Tampax.com, the website you visit more than once a month. I mean, we had just all kinds of big consumer companies. And then all of a sudden, we got a call from John Wren, the CEO of Omnicom, this really 2 or 3 really big advertising conglomerates, Publicis, Omnicom. They all, they own all the all the agencies, WPP. And so John Wren, big guy, and the huge guy in the advertising business, and he says, "Hey, you're already talking to our clients, and we want to buy you." At the same time, there was this guy out in Los Angeles who had a group called the Magnate Group, and he was really a traditional advertising agency, and he said, why don't we combine our companies and we'll buy up a couple more and we'll take it public. And so Ron Bloom and I, we were like, well, this is cool. We have 2 opportunities. We can sell, or we can do something that who would ever think that these 2 dudes would take a company public. So screw it, we'll go public. And we did. We took it public on NASDAQ, and that was a whole ride by itself. I mean, just running a publicly listed, and this was before the big .com boom. So we didn't become billionaires or anything. We're no Mark Cubans, but we had the same kind of basic experience. It was really interesting to just to learn how that world worked. And it's very corrupt and very dishonest. So around 2000. My then wife, who was Dutch, she wanted to move back to be closer to her parents. And so we decided to pick up and move back to Amsterdam. And so I was flush with cash, and, I'm like, yeah, let's set up another company. Let's buy a helicopter. Let's buy a castle. So I was spending money left and right. That was great. I
the Dutch dream.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just spent all kinds of money. And there's lots of history there, but at a certain point, it was pretty quick. In 2000, I met Dave Weiner, and he was doing weblogs, and he really invented weblogs. And he had software called Radio Userland, and I got it right away because you could basically broadcast this, your posts, and the Radio Userland was RSS based, so it had a receiving end. You could subscribe to someone's content. So I saw that as basically it said it on the box, Radio Userland, only it wasn't audio. I said, well, why don't you do like an attachment so I can put an audio file there, and then in the morning when we're still thinking, because bandwidth was still not there, when I come in the morning and my computer's been whirring all night, it's downloaded whatever. Actually, I think it was video we were looking at, whatever you sent me overnight. And that went on for a couple of years. The pure technology of RSS with enclosures had existed for a couple of years until 2003. A friend of mine shows me the iPod, and it clicks right away. Like, oh, that's not an iPod. That's a radio. And it looks just like the old transistor radio, the Sony. It's a little square thing that my grandmother had given me when I was 7 years old, and it was just AM, but I would listen to basketball games under my pillow. And I just saw it as a radio right away, not a digital Walkman or a jukebox. And so I went about trying to figure out how I could connect this RSS thing to the iPod. Struggled. A guy named Kevin Marks I don't know if he was working for Apple at the time, but he basically sent me a correct version of AppleScript. And so then I started publishing MP3s, and I said, look, we need to have this working big, and we need programs. We didn't have apps at the time. We didn't have phones. We needed to work for not just the iPod, for other MP3 players. And I'm going to drive this by creating content every day so that you have something to develop against. So you have an RSS feed with a regular show that would show up every day. I called it the daily source code because, developers source code. And I would talk about what they were doing. And we figured out lots of early, which now seems very logical, but early stuff. Like when you subscribe to a feed, don't download all the 50 shows that came before it. Certainly not if you're on dial-up, all these things that we learned. And so we had iPodder Lemon and iPodder X and all kinds of different programs that came along. And this kind of caught storm. The original people who really got it were what I call godcasters, religious guys. Like, this is cool. I can distribute this. I don't have to, get time on the cable channel or buy radio time. So they got it. NPR, BBC, they would interview me. It's funny, on the media just did a whole history of podcasting. They kind of cut Dave Weiner and Adam Curry out, even though they interviewed me at the time.
They interviewed you and they still didn't include your part of the story?
No, they literally cut out 2 years of the story. It doesn't matter. Oh my
gosh.
You know, it's interesting about the Godcaster thing because at least by the time, when I was in high school, I had a friend who was making a podcast. He was doing like a music show, and he tried to show it to me on iTunes, and nobody really got it. I didn't really understand. But it wasn't until we were in college that I kind of got the possibilities that podcasts were, represented. And a lot of it was Godcasters because, this idea, people trying to become broadcasters, the idea was, I want to get on radio. I want to get on TV. That's what the goal is. But the Godcasters, it was really this exclusion of sort of the gatekeeping for getting a message out there.
Yes.
And religious people, Godcasters who didn't have money, and even if they had money, would have a hard time getting past the gatekeepers who are trying to run a business and sell advertising and stuff like that. I mean, there's always been local radio stations with that religious broadcasters have used and taken advantage of that technology. But podcasting really sort of at its core was a way to equip those who the gatekeepers would never let through. I mean, it's really revolutionary in its sort of philosophical ideas.
Well, they got it right away. They exactly as you said. And now I understand much better in my own faith journey. I'm like, oh, I see why. I see. You want to get the word of God out. Yeah, that's not that easy if in the traditional media system. So
right.
That just went really fast. And then it really exploded when Steve Jobs called and said, hey, you got a minute to talk? And I looked at my calendar and said, maybe I can do Tuesday. Let me see. Which was by itself was just a phenomenal meeting. And then he put it into iTunes. And, there's that history, I think, is pretty well known. But what for me now is important is that 3 years ago, I saw what that very same Apple was doing. And Steve Jobs, he set it up right. He said, look, in fact, when he said, hey, Adam, I want to make radios for you. You've got the system. I want every iPod to be a radio receiver, and I want to do that. Is that okay with you? Like, and they were good stewards, even though, of course, they promoted, the NPR, the mainstream, the BBC, the PBS, all the hoity-toity good stuff up front. It was everybody was welcome. Everything was in there until they weren't. And this is after Steve passed. And Apple, in coordination, I might add, with Facebook and Twitter, and I have to kind of back up and say that Apple was so good in being a steward of podcasting, they allowed any independent app developer to use their database as an index, because it's okay if you have 100 podcasts, but then when you have several million to search through it, to aggregate all those feeds and to really have an overview so you can quickly find and subscribe or follow to a podcast, you need some at the time, you certainly needed some centralized system. We still have that, but that centralized system was Apple. So when Apple decided to, in literal collusion with other Silicon Valley companies, to deplatform Alex Jones, and this is before any lawsuits or anything, the X22 report, innocuous stuff. It doesn't really matter what it was, because it's like, oh, you're going to take that off? Well, you'll take anything off then that doesn't suit you. And that's when I called my buddy Dave Jones, who I'd known for about 10, 11 years. And we've been tinkering with RSS and aggregation and publishing tools for a decade. And, we'd only met really once, I think. But, we had a good time. And from time to time, I called up and said, Dave, I got an idea. Let's try this. Okay. And he would always go, okay. And, and he built it, and we'd iterate on it, and nothing really came out of it stuff we used ourselves, and we'll add features that weren't there before. And he went, okay. Yeah, and so, we started building that, and it was like we uncorked this fine champagne bottle of creativity, because Apple never really wanted, when you have podcasting, you want to add a new feature like a transcript. You can publish a transcript, but you also have to have, the main database ingest it and make it available. And Apple had no interest or never put resources against that. And so now all of a sudden we did that. And like all these people showed up. Yeah, I want this in it. How about chapters? How about location, person tag, all these different things. Then so we just started developing that with all of these, what I call the band of gypsies. Sorry, gypsies have given me permission to use their name. Actual gypsies. They say, yeah, you're right. And it's like a band of musicians. A guy shows up with a banjo, someone's got a washboard, someone's playing spoons. There's a guy with a theremin, and we have one or two women, thank God, who because I find that to be beneficial. And it's not just developers, it's podcasters, it's content, producers, listeners, just people who are interested. And now we've been doing this for 3 years, and we have hundreds of thousands of podcasts using these new features, and we have we have over 65 apps and services. But you can today, access 16 different apps, some of them well known like AntennaPod and Podcast Guru and Podcast Addict and Podverse, and some newer ones like Cast-O-Matic, Fountain, PodFans, CurioCaster that access all these features, including the other thing, which is the value for value streaming payments and the boostograms, which was something that just came in pretty much at the beginning, because I figured if you can deplatform a podcast, you're going to deplatform someone's money. And we just can't rely, for myself too, like, how long will PayPal put up with stuff? And Bitcoin was the obvious way to go, because it had this Lightning network, which in essence lets you program money. And so you can make programmatic money. There's no person in the middle. It goes direct from your app, which is a wallet, to the podcaster. This is a beautiful system. And I think there's about 16,000 podcasts that now have value for value, Lightning network value for value enabled feeds.
Wow. I think it's so interesting. I mean, for those who are listening, we know you usually don't get a history lesson on this show, and that's probably too bad. But what you're hearing is the history and now the future of probably your entire mindset about what's going on in the world. If it weren't for the simple existence of podcasts and the involvement of Adam and all those who are involved, the idea that a mass population would all start to agree, the idea of media, legacy news, government propaganda, messaging, to have as many people be where they are right now is directly related to this technological improvement on broadcasting and going around gatekeepers. So it's not just a history of, Adam Curry playing around with computers as a kid. You're literally hearing the history of the worldview that you now share with so many people. Even when Gons and I started podcasting back in 2012, we had this idea that, we will try to let people know the fringy stuff. We'll look at aliens with a biblical worldview, or we'll look at giants or Nephilim or technology or robots. Yeah, all that. Oh, trust me, Adam, we'll get to Nephilim.
We'll get to the Nephilim.
All these things. And it was just us being weird, fringy people on the internet. You look around now, there's huge portions of the country and even the world who are now turned on to these topics. And it's literally directly related to the existence of podcasts. If it didn't exist, we would all still be listening to the legacy news media, and the idea of questioning any narrative or any story would just be blasphemy. And so, you know, you talk about learning your history, the history of this country, the history of democracy, the history of whatever. The history of podcasting is maybe the most important turning point in giving the power of broadcast to people who are not gate kept. I mean, you can talk about controlled, you can talk about all these types of things, but at the very least, gate kept to speak to, you know, a mass amount of people. And you might say, oh, but YouTube, oh, but Twix, oh, but these things.
Twix.
Yeah,
Twix.
well,
Good stuff.
but YouTube, we've had 3 channels now canceled from YouTube.
Yeah,
We've lost over 250,000 followers because YouTube decided we weren't worth listening to, or maybe we were too worth listening to, whatever way you think about it. And still, podcasting is what persists. The classic RSS feed. You know, we get a little cranky about the idea of people thinking YouTube shows are podcasts. And look, I'm tired of fighting that battle. Podcasts are podcasts. It's an RSS feed. It's a gatekeeper
if I can
list.
interject for a second,
Please.
there's an important part of this story that cannot be overlooked, and that is the hundreds, more than 1,000 independent hosting companies. These are small, most are small companies who may service 10, 20, 30,000 customers. And it's because of that. I mean, we recently did an analysis. Feeds come from about 2,000 places. So at podcastindex.org, we have all the podcasts, even the ones that Apple and Spotify and all those guys don't have. And it's because of that distributed nature and the fact that I host my own feeds on my own server, because there's no one place to go and shut it down, which Spotify tried. They spent $1 billion. They bought an entire hosting company, which turned into trash. It was already kind of trash, but they made it even trashier. They tried to control it. They tried to be the owners of podcasting. And they literally spent $1 billion and have nothing to show for it. They have nothing to show for it. And I told them that would happen. And so they lost their ass. They could not make it work. And so now they're punting or whatever they're doing. It is indestructible. In a way, RSS and Bitcoin go hand in hand. And big props to Dave Weiner for seeing the power of RSS, for protecting it. He really protected that, didn't let it expand because there were competing formats. I mean, it has been kicked and beaten and slapped from back in the days when it was just blogs and Google had Google Reader, and they shut that down, and it was popular. Google Reader was where you had all your feeds and you subscribed to them, and it was fantastic. And then Google went, no, we can't control it, so we're going to shut that down. And they created Google Plus. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember Google Plus. Yeah.
And Google, and you had to manage your circles.
It was so confusing. It was not user friendly, but I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, I thought we had an email account. Now we have this thing, and what's
social
going
media. It came off as like just a social media
I didn't
sort
like
of platform.
Well, you know that Twitter started as a podcasting company.
Right. Yeah.
It was audio.
Only because I heard it from you.
We know that from you.
And so they were using RSS feeds, which again, when you centralize that, it sucks. The fail whale was because they were trying to do something that RSS was never designed to do. It wasn't designed to be just RSS feeds in one huge company. So they had to completely, I think they were the guys that pushed Ruby on Rails the hardest at the time. And so they had to re-engineer everything. They probably re-engineered several times. I'm sure Musk has done yet more engineering. Yeah. So now social media is a whole different beast. I mean, that's destroying culture. That's destroying lives. That's destroying minds. It's like, put your helmet of salvation on, everybody, because social media is trying to rot your brain.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard of, I'm sorry, Basil, have you heard of the idea of distributism, or like the movement, or it's kind of like an ideology? Have you heard? Because it sounds very familiar to everything going on here. So if you hadn't heard of it, it's basically an idea that was shared by early 20th century Catholics, G.K. Chesterton being the most popular. And he and we're not Catholic. Basil and I aren't Catholic. We have some Catholic listeners, but him and Hilaire Belloc came up with this idea called distributism, which, you know, some people think it's kind of like socialism, but it's not. It's not the redistribution of wealth as socialism or communism. It's more the distribution of the ways in which people make a living, like not wealth, but advocating the redistribution of the means of production to as many people as possible.
It's more of a decentralizing the means of production.
Yeah.
It's like,
So, I'm writing this down.
Yeah. A cow in an acre. A cow in an acre is sort of the saying that every man deserves. You know, being born in this world, you are, you know, whatever, inherited to a cow in an acre to get your life going kind of thing. So it's more of that type of concept. And I think what this entire history you've been laying out for us here shows your role in this sort of era of digital distributism. Now, I don't know, maybe in history it will be called that in the future, but I think that's what it is, because you're preserving the capability for anybody to participate in this broadcast system. And obviously the battle is amongst those who believe that is free and those who want to control the messaging. And that's sort of the ongoing battle that we've all been hit with here. And I don't know if you know, Adam, but I was a YouTuber since 2011. I was baptized in 2007, got into all kinds of weird Bible stuff. And I was trying to jive the topic of aliens and UFOs and all this stuff with the Bible very early. I was saved and everything. And I'm like, okay, the word should explain everything. So tell me, UFOs, what's all that about? And there wasn't a whole lot of people talking about that, especially in my community, local church, all that. I got a lot of cold shoulders, or don't worry, just read this part of the Bible, not the whole thing, that kind of attitude. And it wasn't until I found podcasts, specifically podcasts. And at the time there, you know, it was a little bit, a little harder to find, but they were out there. These Christian podcasts, I guess you could call them Godcasters, but they were talking about these issues that nobody in church was talking about. And that was your Future Quake, PID radio. Those were some of the ones I came across in the 2009-ish. I think they were doing that kind of internet radio from about 2005, 2006.
What's the show I was just listening to? Hold on a second. It's Lord of Spirits.
Lord of Spirits.
Those guys, Andrew Stephen Damick and Stephen DeYoung, they're actually The Land of Giants is the episode. It's from 2020. It's the episode I've just been listening to about Nephilim.
Dude, that's the craziest part about our life in the past 10 years, Gons, is 10 years ago, we're talking about Nephilim. We're getting kicked out of churches for talking about Nephilim. So we start podcasting about it. And now Nephilim, man, it's everywhere. People are onto it.
It's all over the place.
We accomplished the mission.
Yeah. So my YouTube channel I published a documentary in 2011 called Age of Deceit, Fallen Angels and the New World Order, summarizing the research I had done for 2-3 years on the topic of aliens, UFOs, the New Age movement, and how it relates to the Bible and Bible prophecy. And I just published it for my own well-being. It was like, I have all this research in my head. I don't know what to do with it. I'm just going to publish this documentary. It's out there. It's on YouTube. Everyone can make films now on YouTube. So did that, and it just got popular on the internet, got to about 6 million views on my channel. There was multiple millions more on across YouTube. And then, you know, just made content over the next 10 years, commenting on things going on around the world, looking at.
How proud were your parents?
I think they just kept asking me how much money I was making. So I think their incentives are not aligned with the mission there, but the Great Commission. But you know, that's just my parents. They come from a different culture. You know, they're immigrants to America and things like that. So, but yeah, and then obviously, and Basil and I were talking. I think there's an episode in 2000. I think it was episode 1. It might have been episode 1 where we actually said that, hey, there's a global lockdown system type of thing planned. It could happen any certain ways, you know, and pandemic is one of those things that's a possibility. And I know there were many other people talking about that kind of stuff back in the 2000s.
Not many,
but I mean, there's a few, and I'm sure podcasting has preserved all those who were talking about it at the time. And so we go through that, and we get to 2020, the lockdown. Basil and I go into hyper gear, publishing 3 times a week. You know, we're on for hours, just breaking everything down for people. And And
this is what year now?
We're at 2020 now. This is so post-pandemic.
Yeah.
We get to 2021, the YouTube channel gets shut down for medical misinformation and cyberbullying and all this kind of stuff.
I think it's racist. It's just Asian racism.
You know, funny enough, we actually used that one time. We said this was, we made the case that this is Asian hate. This is right when Biden was doing his Asian hate thing. And it worked. It worked one time.
Got it back.
One time.
I appealed the strike, and they took away the strike because Gons was Asian.
It worked once.
Well, you used your diversity for
I know. But then I think they red carded me or something. They're like, no, that's that bad Asian. That's that not good Asian.
Give them one chance.
Asians
get one.
One card, yeah. So anyway, so that's been, and it has been because of the value for value model that we've been able to sustain and do this. And obviously Basil and I have been very open about, hey, if we stop providing value, we will know. We will know, and the show will die, and we'll just move on to something else. So, just many thank yous to you for not just, fighting for all that, but continuing to press on, because I know that you could easily just kind of fall back into the background and say, hey, I did my part. Let me just sail off into the sunset. But it seems like you're just chugging along.
And what I love, and here I go, I can feel myself getting fired up. The thing about the value for value model is it's a very biblical concept.
God thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as now I think your worldview now includes sort of a supernatural worldview. We're not necessarily fighting simply against other humans and the gatekeeping and the control mechanisms and the darkness that lie in the heart of man, but
forces of a dark world.
Yeah, the principalities and the powers that are in control. The Bible tells us that, we're not in control of this world. Principalities and powers are in control of this world. And the principalities and powers, the spirits behind advertising, are so obviously out for their own interests, their dark interests, their supernatural interests, and not out for the spirits of man. I mean, the very concept of logos being so closely related to chaos magic sigils, the very concept of selling the attention of the people who trust you and give us their attention for us to turn around and sell that for a bag of silver. So they can have access to your mind.
We're not fighting against people and human enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, dark powers and pure evil in the universe.
Exactly. You guys, you people, you know this. And so what's been so exciting about being so engaged in the No Agenda show and the message that you guys are putting out, is sort of the overall messages, of course, is in recent times in your faith journey coming to a place where you're speaking sort of outwardly now about the bigger picture going on, the supernatural forces that we come in contact with that rule our lives already. And in order to break free of those things, we have to feel inconvenienced. We have to feel that it's a sacrifice to break away from the sort of easiness, the convenience of funding a podcast with advertising or giving your face scan away to unlock your phone so you don't have to put in your code, these types of things. But the value for value model, I mean, it's a spiritual war. I mean, it is a weapon in sort of the mass spiritual war going on. And with that, someone learning about the value for value model and then making a personal choice to let it change their paradigm, and that they are now responsible for what media lives and what media dies. We're done handing that responsibility to literally evil corporations who have been in charge of media surviving or dying. For each and every single one of us taking responsibility for what media exists and what media doesn't exist. And a lot of people are feeling this paradigm change and they're loving it and they're feeling the freedom. But a lot of people, man, they are stuck. They are still stuck. We literally have had people begging us to take advertiser dollars, so they don't have to listen to the producer segments and feel the guilt that comes with not participating or whatever it is.
It's hard to stop the cash flow river. It's already moving so fast that it's just there.
So you're hitting on this is, for me, value for value is the most important thing. And to hear you even use the term value for value, which Dvorak and I have been using for 15, 16 years, fills my heart with joy. Because I come from a world where you have to be number one. You have to have the most. You always have to have the most viewers, the most captured, the most souls that you have to collect so that you can then hand them off to the advertiser. And that's why charts exist, and that's why statistics exist. And then from day one, we don't really even know how many supposed people supposedly listen to No Agenda. We don't know. We don't care. It was always, can I pay rent? Can you pay rent? Great show. That's what it's been. It's always 100%. Been that. And it is such a paradigm shift in your brain, particularly people coming from a traditional media background. They can't even wrap their head around it. You're begging for money. You're grifting. You're busking. No, I'm literally saying, take this. If you find any value in it, send it back to me. Now, we've used the 3 T's, time, talent, treasure. That I got from my wife, who is, by the way, she's on faith journey with me. We started it together. She's retired from corporate life, but she was a chief communications officer at nonprofits for most of her professional career, most recently Ronald McDonald House Charities in Central Texas. And they use this term, time, talent, and treasure. How can you help us help these parents and these children? And of course, now I know that it's a biblical thing, time, talent, and treasure. So this has been around for a long time, and it is so honest. It is such a wonderful way of life, because it really is life. I mean, someone like we moved out here 2.5 years ago. Now we have 3 acres. That's 3 acres of pain, because you got to mow that. And I'm like, I'm too old. I'm not going to sit on the mower. And so this kid who was with our septic guy says, hey, I want to start a business. I'm going to buy a mower, and would you be my first customer? I said, yes. And so he's out there 8 hours, and I say, well, how much do I owe you? He says, well, I haven't really priced it out yet. And, he said, this much. And I said, no, I'm going to give you this. It's more, because that's value for value. That's what I feel is the value that you provided to me. And it blew him away. And, just this whole, now, it doesn't have to be that way everywhere. You don't have to go in a restaurant and say, well, I value this meal at this. You could. It would be great if restaurants did that. But for something as ephemeral as media, it's just ones and zeros. I mean, man, it's here, it's gone. It's, maybe you save it. I don't know. But the value I can't determine what someone else will take away from what I'm doing. It's very different for people. And for one person, it's like, man, I'm just filling my day. For another, it's like, oh, this is earth shattering. I learned something so good about the world around me or about myself. And for me, $5 is a lot of money, but this is what I value this at. It's a high amount for me. That's just as appreciated. And of course, what I learned is, this was the big takeaway, is there's people with a lot of money who think $1,000 is well worth what they're getting out of the show. Bam, my head goes, what? I never expected that. And there's a lot of people who are like that. There's a lot of people with a lot of money. There's also a lot of people who will never give anything, and I love them just the same. They go out, they promote the show, boots on the ground reports. These are all extremely valuable. It's all good. Time, talent, treasure. And somehow now, of course, the past 1.5 years, now I get it. Now I understand. Like, I used to always wonder why the MTV Music Awards, the rap guys would go, and I want to thank God for putting the lyrics into my head. Now I'm like, God, thank you for driving me towards putting the iPod and the RSS thing together. Thank you. Now where it came from. Thank you for thank you for putting Dave Jones in my life and me in his life. The perfect combination and by the way, he's been an important part of my faith journey. I mean, I woke up one day and I looked around and went, "Oh, these guys are Christians. What's wrong with me? what am I missing out on here?" No one pushing anything on me, anything like that. And so once you get insight into that, and once you understand the Holy Spirit and how that works and the power of prayer, oh man, I mean, that's when I am literally reborn, but reborn into a whole new path of life. I'm 59, but I'm excited about, as my pastor would say, I'm running through the tape. I'm going to die spitting in this microphone. I'm going to go all the way. There's a lot left to do. And I'm excited to see, you guys, definitely a younger generation, picking it up and using it. And what got my attention is all of a sudden there's producers showing up at No Agenda going, "Hey, I love what you guys are doing," and they're tagging you in their donation notes. I'm like, who are these dudes? Yeah. They're like, "Oh, okay." And then I see this googly eye guy and some VR thing. I'm like, whatever. But I actually started listening to the podcast. It's a little more comfortable for me not to have to view anything and just listening.
Just listening. Yeah.
We were audio. You're not playing any of the jingles. I've only heard one jingle so far. This is disappointing.
Well, so I didn't want to interrupt too much.
No, I know. Let me give you a roadmap. Let's talk roadmap real quick. Let's podcast produce for a second. It's 12:30 our time right now. When we were discussing, you made yourself available till 1, I think, or maybe not. I don't know exactly what the time frame was. It's very important for us and everybody to hear the story of how you came to Jesus, what that journey was like. It's because this is obviously a very big deal for me. I could not miss the opportunity to get into special interests. Your special interest, for instance, being OTG. I think this is one of the beautiful things about podcasting. Your OTG segments, something that's very important to you, something you're very interested, bringing it to the podcast and discussing it over and over. And even people who don't care kind of tend to start liking the OTG segments, things like this. We also have our versions of our special interests. Mine is called the Flippy Update, which is about specifically robotic arms, and definitely sent me into a tizzy when the No Agenda character Zippy came about. I was about to set up. See, Flippy doesn't have a voice. See, this is a big problem. Flippy's a little harder to broadcast. But it would be an honor if I could include you in a Flippy update before we go.
Yeah, let's do a Flippy update.
And then, of course, Gons would like to come around and make sure we get some Nephilim in. We
gotta squeeze in Nephilim. It's kind of a tradition around here to ask. We can have a guest about something completely different, and at the end, I'll be like, "So, what about them Nephilim? What do you think about those Nephilim?"
What about them Nephilim?
It's the awkward question. But yeah, let's do a Flippy update featuring Adam Curry.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Flippy.
That's right. It's right, folks. It's time for the Flippy update. Flippy is our colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world. And now there's nothing we can do about it. Adam, today, our Flippy update. Now, here's just a little update for you, Flippy. We, on one hand, we like to explore the different ridiculous robots coming about, but it's quickly turned into dissecting the sort of propaganda that's coming down in order to convince the public to feel about robots the way we're supposed to feel. That may include, humanizing them, talking about them as a person, talking about future robot rights, and, just exploring how the media talks about these robots, specifically robot arms. And there was a big story going around recently I don't know if you saw it, it came across your desk, your timeline. But when a robot story gets so popular and viral and picked up, I think it's worth taking a look at for the Flippy update. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. This one's coming from the BBC.com. The headline, "Man Crushed to Death by Robot in South Korea." That's right. One more body count for the robot. It's not going down. It's only going up. Let's see what the BBC has to say about this. A man has been crushed to death by a robot in South Korea after it failed to differentiate him from the boxes of food it was handling, reports say. The incident occurred when the man, a robotics company employee in his 40s, I hope he's an employee, was inspecting the robot. The robotic arm, confusing the man for a box of vegetables, grabbed him and pushed his body against the conveyor belt, crushing his face and chest, South Korea news agency Yonhap said. Already a little bit more gruesome than I was expecting from the BBC, Adam. Does anything come to mind?
What comes to mind for me is the other robot kills man story, which was the Cruise self-driving car in San Francisco.
Yes.
That hit a guy that had already been hit and dragged him along for 20 feet because it couldn't tell what he was. So
these robot deaths somehow are they feel free to sort of report the most gruesome elements of, like, a toaster killing somebody. You know, we see gruesome elements when it's like some sort of shooter or right-wing extremist or something like this, but to be sort of laying at the feet the language, like confusing or differentiating to a toaster, I don't know, it just makes me feel funny, Adam.
Well, the media, if it bleeds, it leads. First of all, we have to agree on that. So, death and destruction is always good for media because that gets eyeballs and clicks.
That's true.
And we've been psyoped into this belief, which is translated into an executive order in America, which is a global conversation about artificial intelligence. And if we don't keep it in check, if we, the smartest rulers of technology in the world, if you don't give us all the powers, well, it could get out of control. It could kill more of you, just like that poor guy in Korea. I mean, that's what this is about. This is all, and it's a very cynical operation from a bunch of jackoffs in Silicon Valley who have no story at the moment. They have no other story. So this so-called AI came out and it's what they're using. It's the new blockchain. It's what they're using to raise money, to have reasons for existence. And when you get the government involved, and whenever government puts regulation in place, granted an executive order is weak as regulation, but it's a start, then you can solidify the incumbent's place in the marketplace. But there really isn't a marketplace yet. They're trying to build a market around something which inherently is just, I don't think it really is real.
Yeah. I think that background is really important. The executive order, you got Google, you got all the biggest Silicon Valley companies coming together and sort of promoting the idea that the government needs to crack it down.
Sort of. They have huge meetings on television. It's all behind closed doors because, we can't actually, you could build a chemical weapon with AI.
Right. And, of course, this only serves those big companies because they already got their foot in the door. They're the robot people. They don't want anybody else getting into the robot game. So influencing regulation is like this crazy corporate tactic. And it seems like, exactly right, the striking of fear. I mean, of course, we've always been afraid of robots. It's just in our blood.
Inherently.
Yeah, but to play on it only goes to sort of bolster public, the gruesome details, bolstering public support for government crackdown. I think that's the key, my friend. Look at that. We got Adam Curry on the Flippy update. Unstoppable around here.
Well, I'm interested in hearing, as someone with your hands on the technology developing and kind of going back to that distributism idea, this has to be ultimately a question of who gets the hardware, does it not? I mean, the AI stuff, yes, the scripts and the algos and all that, and yeah, okay, we need to monitor all that, and you got to watermark your AI content and all that stuff, but there's got to be some sort of play in terms of who gets the hardware. I know Taiwan, we've talked about Taiwan as part of that whole process and stuff.
Owned by the people.
Yeah.
The people will own the hardware.
Well, there's a little piece of history here, which is not well known, although you probably do understand this, that none of this was supposed to happen. But somebody jumped the gun before basically Google was ready to do anything. And I think they were years away from being ready for anything. And what happened is Meta released one of the early LLMs in open source. And so all the open source guys got a hold of it and were like, oh, this is interesting. And, we had to immediately tamp that down because we can't have everybody else just running around creating AI type technology. We have to control that. And so no sooner has this executive order been written than two of the main players in the AI it could take over the world. I mean, Elon Musk, he's a real liar. He's a liar. He will be punished for the lies about AI. Oh, if we don't keep it in check, it will ruin the world.
We have this right here.
AI is much greater.
He will have to pay for that somewhere down the line. But no sooner is the executive order written, or he comes out with, oh, here's Grok. And then OpenAI, Sam Altman comes out, oh, well, we're going to do an AI with an app store. So what is it? Is it something that's so dangerous that nobody can do it? Or is it just a joke, which Grok is clearly, a tongue-in-cheek, non-woke version of a chatbot? OpenAI, back to the hardware. Yeah, we're going to run the hardware. We'll have all this cloud stuff because we, by executive order, the only ones that are allowed to do it and check your LLMs and make sure that you're okay with the stuff you use. And then you do an app store. I'm telling you, this is a pipe dream. Nothing's going to come. AI has been through what we call AI winters. Look it up. There's a wiki page. This happened throughout the last 30 years. Oh, artificial intelligence, and then it goes away. It's the funding cycle. It's like we need something. That we're kind of saturated with the advertising. The advertising is going down. There's not a lot of growth. Blockchain didn't pan out. Although Bitcoin, I think, is still by far I think it's a gift, honestly. Everything else is just an also ran type thing, and it just didn't work. See FTX, and I think XRP and ETH and all these things, they'll have their FTX moments. So they move over to AI, and the real AI that we have an issue with is artificial intimacy. That's what we're really suffering from. That will ruin the world. Artificial intimacy that are social networks, which are also it's saturated. There's too many. People aren't, there's not one place. Trump's no longer on Twitter, really. It's like, so it's falling by the wayside, and people are spinning themselves up and shit posting and posting memes, and even on our own No Agenda Social, it just seems like an artificial intimacy. People aren't getting together anymore. This is why the church is so good. Man, I finally adopted my schedule on Sundays. I get up at 5:30 now so that I can do prep and then go to the early service. And I come home and then I'm energized. I've seen people. I've been around people. We've worshiped together. It just feels good. God is in the room. This is what people – No Agenda meetups are successful for this it's not biblical, but people need to be together. They need to have human energy. I mean, this is the simplest things. So artificial intimacy, that's our real problem. That's going to kill the world.
Yeah, and I
totally agree.
Ultimately,
totally agree.
The hardware, I think these elite folks and led by certain principalities and powers, ultimately the hardware is us, right? They want to be able to hack into our biology and just store all the wetware stuff and
interface.
That gets into all the end times type of fun stuff.
Oh, he's back up.
Yeah, I have
going to the treasure chest.
I have one of these.
Ooh.
What is
Start
this?
9. So this is my future. I love this. Start 9 is a company. You probably heard of Umbrel.
I use Umbrel. I've been trying to reconnect it since I moved.
I have Umbrels as well, but these guys really decided to make a business out of it. The Start 9, so they built an operating system, Start OS, and they actually will sell it with hardware. So it comes in a complete little box, and it replaces all cloud services that they're getting from Silicon Valley, all of them.
Wow.
Anything you need, except email. That's the only thing that they can't do, and there's a whole bunch of reasons we can do to get into that. But Office, working, collaborations, file storage, serving files, all of your favorite apps. Even, yes, I have 10 large language models running on an AI type system, which is really only good for 2 things, because I've done a lot of experimentation, and it's really good at writing code because it's made of code. So code is a language with rules. And funny enough, it's very good with biblical scripture. You can ask it to find scripture, to find concepts within scripture. You can, I've worked with my pastor as a joke. So, okay, why don't you write a sermon based upon these concepts and this these pieces of scripture, and it actually does a pretty good job. Everything else,
it's the beginning of the end, folks.
Not really. I mean, not really. But
yeah, as long as there's a well spiritually girded human there guiding the machine.
It's nothing without the human. But there's so much writing that has been done, and it's ingested so much. It's the Bible, I think, is still the most sold and read book in the world. Yeah. So it has that. It has those concepts, and it has a lot of, and there's just so much written about it. Everything else I found is lame. It's just no good. It doesn't give good answers. It makes stuff up. Whoop-de-doo. I still see pictures with people with 6 fingers. Give me a break. The
Nephilim are around, so
Yeah, the AI is making Nephilim 6-finger hands a everyday occurrence.
Yeah, sure. No doubt.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I would love to hear how your faith journey started. I mean, do you have a history with religion, or you obviously, the Lord put some good influences in your life here that started making everything make sense, huh?
Yes. Growing up, not really. My parents were Unitarian. That's the earliest remembrance I have. And we go to church, and this is when I was 6. I don't really remember much of that. But then we moved to the Netherlands, and my parents hooked up with other Unitarians, and we get together once in a while on a Sunday. And what really turned me off was, all the Unitarian church that just a group of expats. We got up really early one Sunday and drove for what seemed like hours to go up on this hill, and maybe there's 20, 25 people. And then we watched the sunrise, and they played on a little cassette deck, Cat Stevens' Morning Has Broken, which really broke my being able to listen to Cat Stevens ever again. The whole thing, just saying, what is this? This is weird. No. And so I've really had zero religion in my life from that point on. Although I will say that I've known, throughout the No Agenda time frame, very early on, people would email me and say, I really like what you're doing, but could you please not take the Lord's name in vain? And so I stopped cussing. I've never really done that, so just out of courtesy. A lot of LDS people who would be No Agenda supporters. So I've always had respect, but really not been too involved. Tina, who we've been together 8 years now, I think she was, I know she was searching. She actually, when we just met, she took me to a service at Austin Stone, which was in Austin at the time, and she was searching. It really wasn't right for either of us. And then we came out to Fredericksburg, which all was driven by by God. There's no doubt about it. And we were both getting nudged. We could just feel certain things. For me, so as I said, I was working with Dave Jones and Mo Facts, and there were more people around me, and Texas Slim from the Beef Initiative. And, I'm always asking stuff. It's like, oh, you're Christian. So is this revelation, is that really like fire and brimstone? We're all going to die and get zapped up to heaven. Or I'd say, do you think God is a person? And then I remember one night, Texas Slim, who's a real cowboy, ex-rodeo guy, is, trying to get people to eat healthy, carnivore, just beef in general. And he was telling me about Jesus, and he said to me, he said, oh man, Jesus was a badass outlaw. I'm like, oh. I never heard this version. And so, so I'm just collecting stuff, the same I would do about any other thing topic I'm interested in. And at a certain point, Dave Jones sent me a Substack by Naomi Wolf. Naomi Wolf, very elitist, left-wing, hoity-toity writer, written several books, feminist, Jewish, and she was talking about, and this is right in the pandemic period, how she saw these friends of hers at Upper East Side dinner parties who were just talking evilly about people, and disregard for people, and she concluded for herself, I'm really abbreviating her work, it's not fair. She just released her book about it, which I'm about halfway through, which hits on all these topics. And her conclusion was, if there's such, these people aren't evil, but there's evil in the world, and if there's such evil, the evil has to be fighting against a counterforce, which has to be good, God. And so I was just in my, I've researched 9/11, moon landings, Nephilim. I've researched a lot of stuff in my life. And,
yeah, boy.
And I went into God and Jesus. I said, well, let me take some time. Let me study up. And I was asking people, and they would send me books, evidence that demands a verdict, just all kinds of other things. And I think 2 weeks, and I went, that's it. It's real. There's no doubt about it. The story is real. Jesus is real. God is real. The Holy Spirit is real. And Tina had, at this point, she was a little further than I was. She was already attending Bridge Church here in Fredericksburg. And she was really kind of finding herself, but she was just going by herself. She really didn't know anybody there. And, it was actually, a friend of hers had told her about Bridge Church. We were supposed to go on vacation, very rare, because that I take 1 or 2 shows off, which rarely happens. And our flight got canceled. It was like Monday morning, Friday. Supposed to go Friday. We're in the car, 3:30 in the morning, flight canceled. It'll be rescheduled for tomorrow. We're supposed to go to Aruba. Back, we get in the morning, just before we get in the car, 3:30, flight canceled. We can get you on a flight, in 2 days. Well, that time was like, we're not going to go anywhere. So here we are on a Sunday. I'm always working on a Sunday. She said, let's go to church. Let's go to this church around the corner, which is St. Barnabas. And we went to this church, and it was okay. It was actually kind of cool, but they were doing hymns and stuff, and so that really wasn't what we were looking for. And then Tina found Bridge Church, which is here in Fredericksburg, and she started attending. I was watching online, and it just grew. Our faith just started to grow, and then at a certain point, we had a dinner with our pastor and his wife. They're both pastors at Bridge Church, and this is like he's my age, maybe 2 years older, Pastor Jimmy, and he's a tatted guitar playing pastor, but the positivity and it just all started to click for me, and I started praying, and I saw the power of prayer. And, it's just been building ever since. And there's not every day. The first thing I do is I do not look at my phone for what's the latest news or what has someone texted me, or no, I go into the Word of God. I'll find different devotionals, just something that'll trigger my interest. Tina is very structured. She's read through the whole Old Testament. She read through the New Testament, Old Testament. She's going back to in the New Testament. We talk about it at night. We'll sometimes read a psalm in bed. It's grown from there, and the realization of how good it is to have God in your life, it's just been phenomenal. It really has been phenomenal. We even did a course together with several other couples here, which, I mean, you ask old Adam, like, hey, you want to do a marriage class? I'm like, no.
Yeah, buddy.
Buddy. A Christ-centered marriage, and it's really just been phenomenal for us. All these things have been great. And then we were watching The Chosen, which of course is by definition cool because it's a value for value donation-based production. And we were watching one of the earlier episodes, and it's Nicodemus, and he's saying, well, how am I reborn? And he goes through this late night conversation he has with Jesus, and then in bed that night he said, I'm ready. So it's time to be baptized. I'm ready to be baptized. And so it's just been building from there. There's just so many beautiful, wonderful people have come into our life, and I love our church family. We have international arms dealers. We have the craziest people who are Christians.
Isn't that so awesome? I love that about church.
But we all and we support each other. We really do, and we all have. Everyone's got family stuff, but it's so nice to worship together, to pray for each other, to lift each other up, to do life together. It's really cool. And when our pastor, and this is what really connected for me. So our pastor and his wife came over for dinner, and we're like, oh, pastor wife, it's like, oh, the pastor, how do we act around him? And I said, kind of by accident, I said, I got to tell you, man, I really love your show. And he's like, and he starts cracking up. He said, "What? My show?" I said, "Yeah, you got a show. You have a format. You got a band. I'm sorry, worship team. That's Christian for band, apparently. You got a band. They play music. You do 15 minutes of that. Then you do the communion, and then you got this going on. So it's a whole format. I get it. I love it. It's really cool. And so we have really been able to learn from each other. And so it's been a great friendship. Just going back, this from a showbiz angle, in a way, a presentation level, but of course he's also my mentor in so many things about God and the Word of God, and it's hey kids, give it a shot. It's really fun.
That is really incredible, man. It makes me, I know you can't see me because with this giant microphone in front of my face, but I'm just
I feel you smiling, brother.
Cracking up. I'm loving it, man. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear the story. And honestly, I was born into the church. I've always been Christian. I don't even know what life is like outside of the church. And it's given a good sort of complexity, because Gons came to the Lord in 2007 or so.
Yeah.
And so we've had a great time sort of navigating like what it's like being in the church for your whole life, and then coming into it later, and then using these perspectives to look at the world and stuff. And for me, listening to No Agenda and then doing our own show, it's fun because on one hand, we don't want to copy your content. That's not what it's about. We have different perspectives, and, we cover different topics at different times, things like that. And it's always a risk, listening to the shows that you are similar to your own. And we always had it in the bag, because even if we talk about the same story, we will bring up the sort of supernatural Christian worldview. And that's where we get to differentiate a little bit. But now you're Christian, man, and we gotta make sure we, stay out of your lane a little bit. But
no, you don't. It's funny because so I did my testimony on Rogan, which was really kind of scary and fun at the same time. But I had to do it. I had to do it, and
incredible.
That invitation came at, of course, the right time, and I got millions of comments, of which I think 5 were negative, from Christians who told me, you're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, there's always them. Yeah.
But in general, it's just only been positive, and so many people who like. I got a call yesterday. I was talking to Rudy Sarzo, bass player for Whitesnake, Ozzy, Dio. Ooh. He's currently on the road with. He was with the Blue Oyster Cult, and now he's on the. No, forgetting who he's on the road with now. And we hadn't spoken in 15 years, maybe, because of course I'd known him for a long time. And he says, "Man, you got baptized. It's so cool. I read my Bible every day." I'm like, "You too, Rudy? Really?" It's just so many people that pop up. Yeah. It's really phenomenal.
It's really been incredible to watch that trend. I mean, again, Gons and I starting doing what we're doing over a decade ago now. And, the vibe was like, "Ooh, we're undercover Christians. We're looking at aliens and blah, blah, blah." And of course, the mission was, always praying for, a revival, always praying for culture, always the goal to be no matter how small of impact we have, to do our part to, help people form and maintain their supernatural worldview, and also to glorify Jesus. And recent times has been really crazy because the world is so on fire and so crazy. Yet you see these mass movements towards Jesus.
Oh, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that it's happening. There's epicenters everywhere. There's a reason why I've been brought to Christ. I can just see it. There is something. It's very analogous to the late 60s when it was a crazy time. We had messy wars. We had television. People were getting spun up. The kids at the time, everyone had tried all the drugs. And this happened in California. I mean, this is actually Jesus Revolution. Kelsey Grammer's movie is exactly what I feel happening now. And we see our church here growing, and we need people to be bold. That's the most important thing, because I think there's been a fear, a real fear, for people to speak up. And so if I can help by being bold myself, and on No Agenda, I mean, a lot of stuff just starts to come out. John and I have never really discussed this. We don't talk outside the show ever anyway.
We know the feeling.
But he knows. He obviously knows, and he calls himself a lapsed Catholic, which is kind of funny because I think that who knows where he's at.
Sure.
I can see Rogan getting much closer. I pray for him almost every day. That's probably the scariest for him. Because it's like he has scientists who come on and say, "Yeah, the Big Bang, but the universe was still created from something." And Joe will be like, "Well, isn't it could be some guy who created the multiverse." Right. And if only there were like a manual or a book or something about how you're supposed to live as a human. I'm like, who's going to tell Joe? How do we get him to the point where we say, "Dude, it's kind of there." So just being bold is important. Because it's so good. I mean, even our kids, none of them are Christians. But it was so wonderful. My daughter, she's 33. She was over here visiting. She lives in the Netherlands. She came over for a week and, she said, "Hey, can I say prayers tonight at dinner?" Okay. And then she's, wow is right. My stepdaughter, who's 26, she says she's in New York and she was looking for a job, and she says, "Well, through him, anything is possible, capital H." Like, what? So I just pray that some people come into their lives and shepherd them along. But anyway, back to the revolution. It's just like people have tried all the drugs, man. It's not working, and when I say drugs, I'm not talking about ecstasy and weed and all that. I'm talking about SSRIs and the SSRIs on top of the SSRIs. It's not helping you, is it? It's not helping. It's not helping.
Culture. I mean, culture itself is not working. You've got all these Gen Z guys, who grew up in the social justice era, and the gender roles and all this whatever, quote unquote, freedom in the culture. And young people especially, are just finding it so empty, and polls are showing, they're having less relationships, they're having less friendships, they're having less fun, they're having less happiness, more depression, more anxiety. The culture that has risen up of the past 10 years and has raised the young generation does not work. And, we try our best not to make the show or our points or anything about culture war. That's Tim Pool's thing. We're not necessarily here to fight a culture war, but the culture is already at war, and right now Jesus is winning.
Well, we already know how it ends up. We already know that we win at the end.
Yeah.
But we went through a very dark period which cannot be skipped over.
Yeah.
Evil locked down the world. It's not, Democrats or Republicans or elites or whatever. Evil did this. Evil took hold in like a giant Milgram experiment. And the trauma that people have from this is very real, very much still there, and is being abused on a daily basis for financial, political means. The shaking has already been done, and now we just see what remains. Right. And the people who I think are strong in their faith and their belief will remain standing. All this other stuff, everything is I can't. There's no other way to say it. It is evil. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Everything that's going on in our world right now is from evil forces. And Jesus said this himself. I know he said it in Matthew 24 because it's read in my Bible. So that means he said it. And he literally said, you will hear of war. There'll be wars, and you'll hear of wars, and kingdom against kingdom and nation against nation. Do not be alarmed. This is just part of the birthing pains. So, but it's not, and the other side is, if someone sends me another YouTube preacher talking about Ezekiel 38 and 39, and here we go, the rapture is coming.
Oh man,
no, I don't think so. Let's not get all spun up.
See that,
but always be prepared, always be ready, always be faithful, and be in your faith and in the Word of God, and try and live like Jesus, and be kind and be gentle. My personal thing that, James 5, I think 3 was big for me, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and even slower to get angry. These are things that I strive towards. I'm trying to give up my right to be offended, and forgiveness is the hardest part. Forgiveness and praying for our, well, it says leaders, but I'll just say our representatives. Praying for them. Every day I pray that Joe Biden just breaks down and says, I'm incompetent and I'm corrupt. I'm just hoping that he just says that one day. I pray that he just comes clean and I repent, whatever. The pray good boldly. Irish Catholic boy. So, this is what we need, and we need love in the world. And what we have now, and you can see the situation is spinning out of control when you have the same people, the same age group, who were psyoped into Black Lives Matter and now are being psyoped into, from the ocean to the sea, Palestine shall be free, which means elimination of Israel, if you look at the map. They're now starting to talk about Genocide Joe. So it's working against them now. Evil has turned on the people who abused the evil forces and tried to control it, and it doesn't work that way. So we're coming towards we're starting to, it's starting to accelerate, and stuff is going to change, and people are going to change. I mean, a great awakening is underway. I can feel it. It may not seem like it, but media, we're consumed by it. It's a false idol in a way. We're consumed by pictures, by social media, by status, by likes, by retweets. It's all going to fall apart. It's so obvious to me because I can see it. And people, either spin out and disappear, or they just check out and say, no, this is not for me. I'm going to do something else. I got to find a real community.
Yeah. You know, it's really incredible. I'm just losing it hearing you speak this way. And if you'll allow me to just fanboy for 1 second, on one hand, I'm done fanboying, but this is just the truth.
2 hours
and
in.
the truth is that this entire revolution that you're talking about, you know, you talk about what made it possible. If it were not for podcasting, if it were not for the gatekeeperless ability for people to talk, they've locked down the YouTubes, they've locked down the social medias, they've locked down the broadcast media, they've locked everything down. And if it were not for podcasting, and I mean people who listen to this show, they hear the tone in my voice and they know what's coming. If it literally were not for podcasting, and Adam, your role in podcasting, the world would look 100% different. If Godcasters were not able to speak freely and have people choose to tune in and listen to the message, this would never have happened without podcasting. And I feel so blessed that the technology exists, because it has defined my entire life in ways that I did not think possible. Not just my job and what I do 3 or 4 times a week, but the way that I have connected. I mean, you talk about the simulated false intimacy that comes with social media, things like that, the communities that get built around podcasts, and the community that I feel when I listen to the podcasters that I have chosen to listen to. And of course, there's conversations to be had about sort of the para relationships between people and their favorite podcasters. We all know this, but podcasting has been literally instrumental in the revolution that we are seeing, not just culturally, but coming down from heaven.
Yes.
It is really a tool that the Lord has used. And to see you, Adam, come to the Lord, it just brings everything full circle, because the Lord has been using you, whether you knew it or not. He's using your podcasting. And, you know, to have you on the team, it's just a wonderful bonus.
I'm humbled by how he used me. I am truly humbled. And now I can connect the dots going back 30, 40 years. I see all the steps I had free will, and I see where I misstepped. I have no regrets that it all came late for me, but now with what the pieces that were, I got the message about 2 months ago. I was speaking at a conference for Godcasters, literally. Yeah. And I was asked to do the keynote, and what do I want to tell these people? I don't really like doing conferences at all. And I got a download from heaven at 2:30 in the morning, and the message was protect them. And I think that's really what all the work that Dave and I are doing is protecting the system, protecting podcasting. Where you talk about what was the term, distributionism.
Distributism.
Our job is to make Podcast Index go away. Our job is to make it so that it is either like DHT space or however it's distributed, that we don't have to exist. That's literally what we're doing. And it will take a few years, and we haven't quite found all the pieces yet. We found a lot of them. And we're using them, and this group of people, Christians and not, there's all kinds of people who've shown up. They're still there. It's been 3 years, and they just keep working on it. And it's the same concept. Of course, we do have value for value, in which everybody's in the value flow, which I think is very important, was also just given to us as an idea, and we were able to implement it. I think you're right. There's something very important about it, and he will guide us. He's guiding me, and so I don't plan too far. I mean, only the fool plans. I was like, oh yeah, next year I'll be doing this. No. It'll be whatever God wants me to be doing. And I'm ready for it. I'm ready for all of it.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely recognize what you're doing with Podcasting 2.0. We're enthusiastic about it.
Thank you for supporting it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we have yet to fully integrate with the system, but it is one of our priorities here coming up, and as the new year. And we'd love to stay in touch and involved with the process as much as we can, and be helpful in any way we can.
Well, we need to get you on the lit protocol.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah.
All the stuff, all the protocols.
We're doing it live already. I mean, we just need to add one little bit, because apps pop off alarms when we go live on No Agenda, and it's the same app that you get the podcast in. So we need to get you guys on whatever you need. I'll be here to help. We need to get you guys on that.
I appreciate that. I think that's essential for moving into the next phase of where the world is going.
Yeah.
And speaking of the next phase, Guns.
Well, I was just going to mention, just to comment, I've been boiling up over here. Lot to respond to with that, but with all the stuff you've mentioned, Adam, I did tweet out, it was still Twitter back then, back in February, how I was actually moved to tears listening to you talking on Joe Rogan and sharing your faith there. So it was a big deal for all of us over here. I know many of us were praying for you for many years. So that's a really cool thing.
I got a lot of messages of people that said, man, I've been praying for you for 10 years. Like, wow, that's so amazing. I had no idea, of course.
Yeah, so crazy. In my third documentary, Age of Deceit 3, the subtitle was called Remnants in the Cyber Hive Earth. And the whole idea was how the church will look as we continue to live out in the technocracy and the technium rise and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that's been so profound for me is biblical prophecy, biblical eschatology more specifically. I feel like the phrase Bible prophecy has been politicized a little too much, especially recent days.
Well, there's a lot of eschatology going on right now, which is maybe a bit much for me. But.
Yeah. See, I appreciated your take on some of through the lens of culture and everything, seeing the establishment within the church as well. Basil and I, we've followed the model of the late Dr. Mike Heiser. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Michael Heiser. He was he's an author.
You'd love it.
Biblical scholar, ancient Near East linguist. So he was literally studying Old Testament Hebrew. He's the guy who took every yod and tittle of the Old Testament from the manuscripts and connected it to a huge database for all the stuff you can do now. So he did the dirty work, and he has a book called Unseen Realm that I think you should read at some point. And he passed away I think it was last year. Has it been a year since Mike has passed away?
I think so. Yeah, he was crazy, a really good friend of the show.
That is crazy. But he had this approach to everything where you can kind of sit in the uncomfortable middle of the sort of not being sure about how to interpret certain things. And I appreciated that approach because so many people are so gung-ho about their interpretation. And if you're not, then, if you're not agreeing with this interpretation, then you must be part of the evil that is on the other side. And so it's really profound to me that you coming at this from where you see how that thing, the same system exists in the so-called church as well, with the entanglement with government and everything else throughout the last 100 years or so. It's pretty profound to see. But I also think moving forward, eschatology will become a more sort of objective approach to eschatology will become very important in Christian apologetics. The idea of supernaturalism being at the forefront of that. And I think you're really just on point with that, because in the last 20, 30 years, and this is just my observation, I studied sociology in college, so I kind of look at things through a sociological lens. And you had the new atheism rise in the 90s. It was like the Four Horsemen of Atheism. It was like the Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins and those guys, Sam Harris. Yeah. And those guys all came to the forefront, made these arguments, these strong academic scholarly arguments against theism. And the Christian apologetics philosophy departments around the world demolished their arguments. I'm sorry to say, you read some of the responses in the last 15, 20 years, they were demolished by the theists.
Well, but even the scientists, like Stephen C. Meyer, I think it is.
Yeah.
Miller. He's like, he's look, I'm a scientist. and here's how the universe works. And if we look at a gene, we look at a single cell. It's a computer. It's intelligent design. And my conclusion as a scientist is that was God. End of story. Now, when you get guys like that on Rogan, I'm like, what more do you need? If you follow the science, it's all good.
Yeah. And so what's fascinating to me is all these passages that are eschatological in nature about whether it be the mark of the beast, or the thing that fascinated me was the image of the beast, because it talks about, the first commentator of the book of Revelation is a guy named Victorinus. I think it was 3rd century. And he talked about how, the image of the beast, it's going to be the statue that comes to life and it'll rule people and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, that sounds kind of like a robot. And with AI and everything happening now, all these prophecies that seemed ridiculous for hundreds of years, it was like, this is all allegory. This is madness. This is just the crazy rantings of a madman, a prisoner on the island of Patmos. But now with the advent of technology, it's like, most people read the Mark of the Beast stuff and they're like, we're pretty much there. We're kind of building it. We're helping it establish itself.
That's CBDCs. That's
CBDCs.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not saying that is going to happen in that exact way. And I've been very clear about that.
CBDCs will happen. That's for sure.
Well, CBDCs,
remember, in my worldview, in my supernatural worldview, Bitcoin was given to us by God.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I've been a big time Bitcoin guy for a while. There's even a
book called "Thank God for Bitcoin," which is worth reading.
Yeah, I think yes, and I think Pastor Coin on X, we've been communicating with him. We might have a conversation with him coming up here. But that's something I did notice as well. Lots of Bitcoiners, Christians, they seem to share some similar values.
They literally understand value.
Yeah.
They have a deep understanding of what value is, which makes it so inherently beautiful. But the whole story of Bitcoin and Satoshi Nakamoto, whatever he was is them word. It's almost, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can just see it happening. And I'm a strong believer in it. So CBDCs, will it be the mark of the beast? Maybe, but I don't think we're there yet, because all I see is Bitcoin being the perfect antidote to that. But it's going to take believers to create these alternate pathways for people to travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of lead up to that whole mark. I mean, we don't have to get into timelines and studies of all that, but there's stuff that leads up to that point.
And by the way, just so Adam has the perspective here, we are infamous skeptics of people who say they have figured out the mark of the beast.
We've gotten a lot of slack. People have been very upset at us for not saying the vaccine is the mark of the beast.
I was talking to Pastor Jimmy about this, eschatology, etc., and these millions of views on YouTube and fire and brimstone guys, and we are living right now in the end times, people. And he says, it's really narcissistic. He says that what they're doing there is they're drawing attention to themselves, when really the idea is always be prepared, always be working towards the day when the Lord returns, always. But to sit there and go, trumpets are next,
timeline setting.
Helpful. And the whole point of even, Jesus didn't know. He says, I don't know, only my Father knows when this is going to happen. But the whole point was, because you're going to be working in the field with some other dude, and you're going to get zapped up, and he's going to stay. And so it's a waste of time in my mind at this moment. The way where I am in my walk of faith, it seems like a waste of time to even have to worry about it. We need more believers, more followers. Shoving it down people's throats don't work. So if it's a start, let it be with me. Let me tell people how it's worked for me and what it's doing for me in my life.
And the key, I think you mentioned it, the key is, how are you living your life on a day-to-day basis? Every answer to what if the beast system is tomorrow, or what, mark of the beast is tomorrow, what if Jesus is coming back, what if apocalypse is starting? The answer to any of those questions is live your life now as though it's happening. You know it's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Mhm.
So you live your life in a way now. And it's been a fun part for me recently, Adam, because I too recently moved out of the big city and off the grid and doing the thing. And I'm sitting out here. I almost died earlier this year from a complicated appendicitis. And I had that moment of, am I living my life right? And I kind of looked around and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty much where I'd want to be if Jesus came back. I think we're doing it.
Yeah. I have to ask the question. I know. I have to ask about the Nephilim. You said you studied it, so you might have some thoughts.
I've been studying it. I do not have. Look, I can see what it says in the Bible. I can see where it talks about, you know, the giants and they were making children with the females on Earth at the time. I really I'm not anywhere near being able to have any.
You were on MTV, Adam. You saw the musicians with 6 fingers. How in the world did they play guitar that way in the 80s? Stop covering for the Nephilim.
They were Jesus freaks, man. That's how they did it. They just didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of those. There seems to be a lot of those. Yeah, you know, again, just a topic that fascinated me, and I feel, and this is just my personal opinion, has tremendous explanatory power. People in our little niche talk about it like, what do we say? We say the Genesis 6 paradigm, because it shapes a lot of how we understand things are, especially some of the supernatural stuff. But, you know, it is disputed amongst the church, you know, people throughout history. But
it's related. It's related to the technocratism that we are experiencing, because within the Genesis 6 paradigm, you know, you're studying Noah's flood and why exactly Noah's flood happened. Because the Sunday school version is that people were mean. Everybody was mean.
So God said, "Away with you!" The big flood. But that's not quite.
But some interesting scholarly and academic, you know, Christian work into the times and into the topic, you know, has some interesting implications for, you know, perhaps the technology of the time was at a point where it could break some very specific rules that God has. Tampering with DNA.
Yeah.
Well,
disrupt.
Just before I forget, because I'm new to all this, so I may I'm just yapping here.
Love it.
So God promised us, gave a covenant. He said, "I'll never flood the land again, the world again," and He gave us the rainbow.
Yeah.
And for that very symbol to be picked up by the LGBTQ, and here it comes, pride movement, that says so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Pride is like, it's like the numero uno sin. And to hijack the rainbow with that is like, it can't be any more clear what is going on.
Yeah. It's very interesting. You start to see all those things tied into, you know, modern culture in many different ways. But yeah, the narrative goes, and briefly, how the sons of God, it says sons of God, it's B'nai Ha-Elohim in the Hebrew. And it's confusing because sons of God is used for believers in the New Testament. So a lot of times the translation in English confuses people in the Old Testament. Hey, why are there believers in Genesis 6? I thought that didn't happen till. It's a whole thing. But there are other passages like in Job where B'nai Ha-Elohim is used, and they're clearly angels hanging out with God in the throne room, and Satan's with them, and the whole thing. So clearly they are not humans, because it says the daughters of men. They saw the daughters of men and that they were beautiful. And if you look at the Hebrew there, it's daughters of Adam. It's daughters of Adam. So it's you know, there's a Sethite theory that these are just two, you know, the believers' bloodline versus the non-believers. But that marriage happens a lot now and we don't see humongous giants being born. So I think something else is going on there. But yeah, and then
They also
also
live to be 120. It's like, I want that to come back.
I think they're trying to figure that out. Yeah. But, and then, we can get into Tamim. The reason why Noah was picked was, yes, he was righteous, but it says he was blameless. You look at the Hebrew word there, Tamim, and it means blameless, like a blameless sacrificial lamb, for example. So why was he pure? He was uncorrupted. Perhaps in a more genetic sense than people might want to feel comfortable with, thinking about. And then we think about Noah's life. We have the flood, and then we have 350 years after, which many people have shown that Noah was alive during the Tower of Babel. That whole incident, climbing up to heaven, taking out God, that whole plan, he was around. The world is under one language and all that stuff, which is, again, seems to be unfolding today. And the thing that really put the nail in the coffin for me with all this stuff was Jesus in Matthew 24, talking about how in the days, so upon my return, it will be as the days of Noah. And people have sort of dismissed it as like, yeah, people are marrying and people don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, boom, Jesus comes back. But then you think about, wait, what was going on in the days of Noah? Let's just look at the days of Noah. Well, the flood, the Tower of Babel. And then you look around now and you're going, we got genetic engineering. We were in the biohack generation. We're mixing with animals and all kinds of stuff. We've probably been doing that in some island somewhere for 100+ years. We are living in a situation where surveillance has become a much more pervasive part of everybody's lives. And we talk about. I'm working on a documentary now about it's the subtitle of Age of Deceit 4. It's called oh gosh, I'm completely blanking on my own documentary subtitle. Okay, where was it? Well, it's about the counterfeit ledger of life. And so you have the book of life, and then we have what we're trying to build, this surveillance apparatus, is this counterfeit ledger for everything, everybody's actions. And so I see all these parallels happening, and to me, it's just fascinating that and I'm not saying, hey, this is the end, the end's coming up. Once Netanyahu, declares himself king of Israel or something, and he starts flying in the air in a UFO, hey, he's back. Jesus is back. It was BB all along or something. I'm not saying any of that, but I just think we're in a very interesting time.
It's an invitation to include, the biblical historical text and worldview into how we interact with the world today.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a question a lot of people are asking. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of scary stuff, but from surveillance to control to globalism, and putting it in the context of what we've seen before. When we have a word for it, when we have a vision for what's happening, we're much more able to navigate it in a healthy and godly way, in my opinion.
Yeah. So it's not just
that's the fun of it. So stay tuned, Adam, for all this and more.
Yeah. It's the basic instructions before leaving Earth. I'm sure you've heard that acronym for the Bible. And it seems to apply from everything from your relationships all the way to what's going on behind closed doors. So,
well, I look forward to picking this up on the next time I come on, if I'm invited back.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby. You're saying those magic words.
I would enjoy that very much. And I actually have to go now because I have people showing up in half an hour.
Yep,
that's perfect. A good reason.
This was really sort of a dream come true, Adam. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adam.
You've been so gracious and generous with your telling of your history and your inner life when it comes to finding the Lord. And we just really appreciate what you do. We appreciate what you have done, what you do, and what you're working on for the future. And yes, if you'd find yourself feeling generous again, we would absolutely love to have you back on the show.
We'll do that for sure. And I want everyone who is listening / watching to support you guys. If you get value out of this podcast, then send it to them. You know how to do that. And thank you for carrying the value for value flag, the podcasting flag, and the Jesus flag forward. It's very important, and I feel like I feel good that I've been able to contribute to that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that very much. We got a lot of flags around here, folks. You know this, and make sure to check out Adam Curry everywhere. I mean, the No Agenda Show, of course, on podcasting, but you Google it. You got a lot of fun stuff going on, Adam. If there was anything specific that you want to pitch before you go, I want to give you a chance to do that.
Go to podcastapps.com. Get yourself a modern podcast app. That's it.
There you go. That's the revolution, folks. That's the next stage of the revolution. You've seen how far podcasts have got us so far, and that's what's going to bring podcasts into the next generation. Gatekeep-proof speech. It's something we all care about. Adam Curry, thank you one more time. We're going to don't go, folks. Stick around. We're going to be thanking producers after we say goodbye to Adam Curry, and we'll be finishing out the show. But Adam, really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
My pleasure, and we'll see you guys soon.
There you go.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Well, there you go, folks. It happened.
It happened.
Finally happened. That's the happiest day in Canary Cry history, without the, of course, excluding the birth of the samurai ninjas, or I'm sorry, the baby samurai princess, and of course the samurai prince over there in the Gonzo Shimura household. But here's the thing. The show's not over yet. Let's take a second and thank some producers, Gons. What do you say?
Let's do it. Yeah. Interesting transition here.
Executive producers.
That's right. You heard it, folks. We're on the value for value model, which means this show is only possible because of the participation of the producers. And those producers are you getting involved with your time, your talent, or your treasure. We're going to start out thanking some executive producers who come in with $100 or more to support this show, to keep it going for all of you. It's not just Gons and I thanking these people and thanking God for these people, but you should do the same. So let's start it out, Gons. What do you say?
Sure. You guys got to fix your face on the live stream.
Fix my face. Fix my face. Make me look pretty, Gons, while I scroll. Having some trouble in the metaverse here, scrolling.
Face. Yeah.
Next time we have Adam on, we'll talk more about VR podcasting. For those who don't know, Adam is, as you can kind of tell, sort of historically skeptical about technology.
Yeah.
However, that just puts more weight when he does see the possibilities in something. And VR podcasting, he has talked about this before. And as the sort of, well, the podfather, to have him see the potential in VR podcasting, my lot in life was very, very encouraging. And I hope to be talking to Adam more about VR podcasting in the future. But here's your executive producers for the day, folks. Ready, Gons?
Almost. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Almost. It's okay. I can stall and talk about VR podcasting all day long.
We're good. I think, yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, here we go. We're starting the executive producers out with the one, the only, you know him, you love him. It's Sir Executive Producer, Sir LX Protocol V2, Night of the Breen Protocol, coming in for $100 and 33 cents.
There it is.
Yeah, he's on a 233 episode streak and a 29 episode executive producer streak. He's almost to that 33.
Yeah, streakalicious.
Executive streak.
I promise we'll have some sort of celebration when you get to 33 executive producer streaks, Sir Alex Protocol. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Next up, we have Sir Marty Kane. Out of the wrong timeline.
Hold on.
In.
Sir Alex Protocol, right? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No,
I feel like
you cut
my
out
connection.
for a second. But...
Oh, okay.
Where'd you find this?
There we go.
There we go. Okay, getting back in the flow, folks.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Sir Marty Kane, Knight of the Wrong Timeline.
Thank you, Sir Marty K.
Yeah, coming in for $100 and 1 cent,
Ooh.
making sure to let us know that he's okay with us disclosing that amount, throwing that 1 cent on there. Thank you very much, Sir Marty K. He's on a 5-episode streak. And the only note I saw from him was he sent in a note that says, I just saw your banks tech are getting or got hammered. Remember to always have some cash laying around. Yours truly, Sir Marty K. What bank tech got hammered recently?
Bank of America. There's a couple other banks.
Oh, the payments.
Yeah, there's some stuff.
Okay.
That went down.
The auto deposits got messed up.
Oh no, I thought it was
just signs of what's to come, folks. Rumblings.
Yeah. No, there's some stuff happening with the banks still. And maybe why Bitcoin is around for a time such as these.
Yeah, who knows? Mm-hmm. If God didn't give it to us, he certainly can use it for his glory.
Amen.
Next up, okay, these next couple are fun and wonderful, and I want to thank them. We have executive producer Jimmy M.
Jimmy M, thank you very much.
Yeah, Jimmy M came in for 333.33, 333.33.
All right.
Megaluminati. And here's the explanation. He was sending this in, not to necessarily get an executive producership, but to make up. He was one of the 44 supply drop redliners who had been getting free supply drops during the year.
Uh-huh.
And he says, this shall not do, and I shall make up the difference for all the supply drops that I missed. So this is what he's doing. He's a man of honor. He's a man of nobility, and we really appreciate it. So that 33333 is 10 months worth of supply drop support that wasn't getting transferred. Yeah, the more I do the math on my bad job tracking the supply drops, the more I'm realizing it costs us thousands of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. So
it's okay.
Lessons learned, folks. This is why we don't do retail. But he sent a note here. To the other 43 CCNT supply redliners who received the drops and didn't pay, needed to step up and take care of our podcasters. Basil and Gons are a blessing to all of us in this crazy upside-down, non-spinning, stationary Earth. Here is my makeup treasure. Thank you very much, Jimmy M.
Thank you, Jimmy M.
Where'd you find this?
Again, I will reiterate, it's not anybody's fault. It's my fault, and making up for, depending on how much you have to make up to catch up, that could be an impossible sum for people. So I don't want to shame anybody who isn't able to do what Jimmy M did, but I am endlessly grateful for Jimmy M coming in, supporting the show.
Yep. Thank you.
And along the same lines, we have executive producer Dwight B.
Hey, Dwight B. Awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to skip his amount because it doesn't matter. He didn't actually have a choice in it because he says not really producing an episode per se, just making up for all the missed supply drop t-shirt council payments. Sorry for the hassle. No, I'm sorry for the hassle, Dwight B. I'm sorry to everybody. So thank you very much. He's catching up, but we're giving him an executive producership for it.
Yeah, awesome.
Where'd you find this?
Thank you, Dwight B.
Yeah. And you know what? Oh, I see we have 2 nightings for today.
Ooh.
Okay. Paul G, we're giving him an executive producership.
Okay.
Because he paid the No Agenda Show for your PhD.
Yes, he did.
In media deconstruction, which is very nice of him.
Very nice.
And, that's okay. I had a couple of episodes where I got to brag about my education, and Gons just had to sit and listen. But now we're peers. We're peers once again, Gons.
2 PhDs running a podcast now, and just tell your friends. That's
a big deal. It's one thing to have 1 PhD.
Yeah.
It's another thing to have 2 PhDs podcasting together. So he sent a note. I'm not sure how much of it he meant to be read, but he congratulated me on my PhD and said it was well-deserved. Thank you. And he says, Gons, you were an integral part of my education. The first 2 YouTube channels I discovered back in the early days were The Vigilant Christian Mario and Face Like the Sun. Gons, your many hours spent in the editing editing booth have not gone unnoticed since you were the first one to mention No Agenda during a solo episode of CCNT. Not sure if that's historical, but okay. After which I started listening, I felt it was fitting to bestow upon you your own PhD in media construction. And that happened yesterday.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
it was
that's awesome.
Really cool to listen to. And it was cool to listen to, as you heard Adam mention, that Canary Cry people who are on board with the V for V model have produced No Agenda. And that's really good for us, especially when you write a note that mentions us. Because, look, you could give us that money, and that's great. We do need that to happen. But it's also very rewarding for us for you to produce No Agenda and say, hey, I came from Canary Cry News Talk. Those guys are awesome. And sort of, pitch our show. That's also extremely valuable to us. So thank you, Paul G, for that. He says, I also have achieved knighthood. He sent his accounting, and we will be knighting you later on in this show. He says, thank you for all you guys do. Keep up the good work. And again, congratulations to both of you on your PhDs. And by the way, he has a PS here. Can you spot me, bro? Our family is kind of going through a tough time right now. Spot on, Paul. Spot on, Paul. And we are excited to knight you during the show.
Yep.
Where'd you find this?
Okay.
Scroll out the bankroll, I spin.
By the way, did you hear John C. Dvorak for the probably, I don't know, 15th or 20th time? Just have no idea who we are. It's so funny.
Oh, we should have mentioned that to Adam. Yes, there's a funny running joke because our name has come out the mouths of both Adam and John about a dozen times at this point. And every single time, John is like, never heard of it. Canary Cry?
Don't know.
That's weird. I don't know what that means.
Is it a show? What is a podcast? What is it?
How many times? How many times does he have to say it?
I almost made a montage, but I figured I'd spend my time doing something else more important.
More proper.
Looking for montages of John C. Dvorak not remembering us.
No, that's okay.
It's fun.
We're not offended by that, but it is a good reason to keep getting John to read our name.
It is. It is number one to see when he'll crack, but also I feel like we have completed half our mission. Now we got to get John C. Dvorak on the show.
We got to get him on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We got a few more producers who came in under the executive producer amount. By the way, Jimmy M. We're going to be knighting Jimmy M. Did we knight Jimmy M last time? Do you remember?
I do not remember.
I don't remember either.
It's hard for me to remember.
It's hard for me to remember.
Yeah.
Well, we might be double knighting Jimmy M, but we will be doing that as well.
Jimmy M is not on the list. The last night I believe we had was Sir Spear's Night of the Desert.
Yeah, and we had, I believe, Sir Jacob. Did we get Sir
Jacob
in there?
Highline Haas, and Night of the... Yeah, that was back in 666, though. Yeah, that was a while ago.
Well, our next producer is Sir Jacob, Night of the Highline Haas.
Hey!
Is that it? Is that the name?
Sir Jacob, Highline Haas and Night of the Issachar Pursuit.
Issachar Pursuit. Yes, that's what it is. Thank you, Sir Jacob. Comes in with 3333.
There it is.
Illuminatus!
Says, my apologies for not sending my accounting in for my knighthood. Yeah, no problem. He sent in his accounting for his knighthood. He says, P.S. Been sharing Burning Man episode with all the pastors in my life.
Hey,
hallelujah.
Good stuff.
Thank you very much. And just to mention, I was just on Fire Theft Radio, which is kind of in the Canary Cry family of podcasts. They started their podcast in response to us doing our podcast for some time there. So go check them out. They got new hosts. You got Mav and Chuck over there. And I went on there, talked about Burning Man and some other stuff. Go listen to it.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Sir Jacob.
Sir Jacob, thank you very much.
Next up, we got Sir Darren, Night of the Hungry Panda.
Hey, Sir Darren. How's it going?
He came in for $16.40. He said for CCR episode 164. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And that is the first time that we have ever mentioned out loud CCR episode 164.
That's
so
true.
For those who listen to the
That's true. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. For the podcast listeners, the RSS feed listeners, the OGs, they got the Ireland episode published on Friday. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of people who just watch the show on YouTube and the streaming services. For you folks, you will be waiting until the 22nd of November. So the 22nd of November, we will be streaming the Ireland episode. We hope you like it. It turned out great. Gons did an incredible job. And there you go. So you can go listen to the podcast version, or if you want to watch the video that Gons puts together, it'll be streaming the day before Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Okay. Sir Darren also came in for this episode.
All right.
For CCR 165. Yeah, there he is. 165 for today's episode with Adam Curry.
Hey,
Thank you very
go.
much,
Thank
Sir Darren,
you.
Night of the Hungry Panda.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We've got a little bit of a shakeup today. Producer Veronica D came in above the 777 mark.
Hey.
327 episodes in a row.
Oh yeah, streakalicious.
And a note that says, please have the producers pray for me. I've been having some health problem. Okay, hit it.
Producers.
Hit those producers.
Producers, assemble!
That's right, folks. Around the world, the producers are assembling. That's you, people who are committed to praying for the show, praying about the show, praying for the producers of the show, praying for our sanity. Those are the producers. Thank you very much. Veronica D., please have the producers pray for me. I've been having some health problems, but I trust that God will get me through this. Producers, put it on your list or drop to your knees right now. We're praying for Veronica D.'s health. It's been a staple of the producer segment for so long.
Yep.
We're praying for you, Veronica D.
Yep, definitely.
Definitely. Okay. Other than that, that concludes the list of financial producers who came in above the 777 mark. We got a few under that, and we'll thank them real quick. Starting with Malik W., 38 episodes in a row.
Malik W. Thank you very much.
Sir Moore of Night of the Burning Chariots, 297 in a row.
Thank you, Sir Moore. I shouldn't have played the jingle thing, the streaker thing. Yeah.
You wait, trigger finger Gons. We got Doctor Who Done That, 27 episodes in a row.
Thank you, Doctor Who Done That. Ooh, Doctor Who Done That hit the firmament.
Oh, yeah. Give it to him.
Okay.
I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will.
There you go. You've joined the illustrious group of Firmament Busters. I feel like we did that already. He might be on 28, but there you go. Double jingle. Next up, we got Sir Scott, Night of Truth, 351 episodes in a row.
Thank you, Sir Scott.
Thank you. We got Dame Gale, Canary Whisperer, and Lady of X's and O's, 322.
Ooh, thank you, Dame Gale.
322.
322.
322.
Ooh.
And of course, rounding it out, we've got Sir Casey the Shield Knight.
Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
366 plus 1, 367 in a row.
Wow. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes our list of financial producers who have come in and supported the show. Remember, value for value. It's a paradigm shift. It's not just generosity to keep this podcast going, but it is a lifestyle change that is helping all of these producers here. They are working not just on keeping the show alive, but working on disconnecting their financial mindset from the idea that corporations solely are the ones who, through the powers of mind control and sigil magic, keep media alive. This is all of us taking responsibility, and we appreciate them very much. If you're interested in producing the show, go to canarycry.support.
Canarycry.support.
All right. Let's we got some more producers to thank real quick here, but we're gonna do a quick speak pipe. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Please leave a message after the tone.
At the tone, please record record your message.
Leave a message. Beep.
Message.
Go to canarycrynewstalk.com. Go to the green tab on the right side of the bottom. It'll allow you to record a message of up to 90 seconds, an audio message, and we shall play it for the people. We do have something that we should have played Friday, and I think we maybe should have played at the beginning. Maybe we'll play it again at the beginning of the next episode, just so in case anyone misses it, because we're playing it kind of late here. But it's a message from Sir.
You're talking about the Isaac.
Ike. Yes.
Let's move Sir Ike to Wednesday.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right.
Yeah. It needs to be a whole thing. Okay. Sorry, Ike, for putting it off one more time. We forgot to give him a warning about Friday, but it's a big message. I want to play it at the top.
Got it. Okay. Well, then we have Silly Goose Elder Dave.
Serious Goose.
Hi guys. Serious Goose Elder Dave here.
Oh, serious.
I want to extend my thanks to Basil for extending me the invitation to vent my hate here.
Oh, here
it's
we
not
go.
directly on him, but he is responsible for these geesenicks following me around. But my hate is directed toward the media. I despise the media for two reasons. The terms gun violence and assault weapon. Guns kill people the way cars are in jail for homicide, and assault weapons. There's no such thing as assault weapon. Oh, no, excuse me. They're all assault weapons. Assault is a verb. It's not a personal pronoun like, she's the finest shotgun I ever had. So the misappropriation of the language drives me nuts, to the point where I can't even express myself properly. But a pen or a screwdriver can be an assault weapon. There's no such thing as an assault rifle. They're all assault weapons. There. Now I'm going to calm down, and I love you, and God love you, and for that, have a nice day.
I love that occasionally we get to be an outlet for boomer rage. I really appreciate it. And I had never thought about that, actually. Yeah, the whole assault weapons propaganda, that's just pronouns for objects.
It's true, yeah.
So wise. Serious Goose Elder Dave. Thank you for the message.
Thank you for that. And we shall thank some producers coming in with their talent. Let's do that. We're going to thank
let's do it, bro.
Audio producers.
Audio production.
It's always important to help us build the culture behind the community here at Canary Cry News Talk. And as we've seen with so many movements around the world, art is important. Art has always been important to express, have visuals and identifiers and symbols that represent a movement or a people or a cause. And, you know, certainly we have our own unique flavor here at Canary Cry News Talk. And it's because of all of you who decide to give value back to the show with your talent. And we're going to start off thanking Little Owen. Little Owen came in with, let's see, I don't think Little Owen has been attaching notes to these recently. I think his note just said, oh, wait, hold on. Let me double check it. Yeah, praise the Lord. Okay, praise the Lord. And he has a song here. I'll play a few seconds. We'll play the full track at the end of the episode. 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's hear a little bit of it here now. Feel it. Feel it. Feels good. Love it. I think we get at least a comment every time we have a Little Owen track playing at the end asking, who is that? Yeah. Whose song is that? Where can I find that track? So Little Owen.
Yeah,
People
Little
digging.
Owen has to send us a link or something. See if he has a Spotify or something.
Yeah. People are asking for your music there, Little Owen. Thank you very much for that. We have something from Jonathan F.
Jonathan F.
And Jonathan F's note. Vladimir still begging for the sweet, sweet petrodollar funds.
Financial support, okay, please. Support, okay, please. Financial support, okay. Financial, you can't give us some financial support, okay. Okay, please. Give us a credit, and we will give you back money after the war.
That's very funny.
That is very funny. That was a kind of a sad moment, I would say, for Zelensky. Obviously, we didn't talk about it, but he's kind of begging for money.
I really did sort of pity him.
Wasn't it sad? Yeah, I thought it was.
It was actually kind of sad.
Yeah, and I like the part where he's like, "Oh, just use the Russian money. Just use that. Come on, you guys have a bunch of Russian money."
Give us credit. We'll pay you back.
We'll pay you back
Give us
after
credit.
This is a good news. So
you got to beg for credit. That's a problem.
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah. When a guy's begging for money and saying he'll pay you back after the war. Ouch.
It's never a good sign.
Ouch.
Never a good sign.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Jonathan F.
Thank you, Jonathan F. Here we got something else from Marty B. Where's my Marty B intro jingle that I always lose and that I always have to be shown again that he has one?
I know.
Where'd it go? Darn it.
Yes,
hold on. I'm really upset that I can't.
You've got to harness the power.
I know.
It's like hurting
one thing I wanted to
with those jingles, Guns, and you do your best. You do your best.
Well, I wanted to maybe dig into that with Adam Curry a little bit, but we didn't have the time.
Next time.
Marty B came in and has a note here. Sorry, I've been out of it for a while. Would you use this for the Sir Casey bumper? See, we've been using this Sir Casey bumper. I don't know if it's new.
I think he just improved it in his way. You know how these musicians
little sonic improvements. Here it is.
Yeah.
Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
I hear it now. So there's like more of a melodic strum. No, the bass I think is the same. It's more of the there's like a ringing chord or something that plays.
I think maybe the bass is a little bit more fiddly.
Maybe a bit.
I think he added some walking fingers on that bass. Whatever the case,
we can play both of them.
This is a Marty B jingle. There's the jingle.
We'll play the old one.
Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
And here's the new one.
Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
It's definitely a different mix.
It is a different mix. You can hear some of the strumming. It is definitely a different
mix. The bass comes out crisper. It sounds much better. We'll use it. You did a good thing. Thank you, Marty B.
Thank you, Marty B. Let's see. I have one coming for the Berean Master of All Streaks guy. Why hasn't anyone done for him or her? We do have the Star Alex Protocol V2 jingle now. We've been using it for a little while. Not a little while, maybe a few weeks here. But we welcome another one, Marty B. And stay tuned for a new smash hit with a bullet, Onward Christian Soldiers. It's not a cover. I just borrowed the title. Would you please play Lil Owen's newest song and the Great Reset at the end mix? Yes, we shall play for the Great Reset.
I think maybe I had disappeared for a second, but Marty B in the chat says fretless bass.
Ah, there you go. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Thank you very much, Marty B. Appreciate it. Let's do art.
One art, please.
And of course, our artist, Sir Dove, Knight of Respeltia.
One art piece from Dove.
And this duo drawing is so fantastic. He has a note here. Peace for this week's Bible artwork. Oh, that's not the note. Did I not update the note in here? Apparently I did not. Okay. Well, let me make sure I read the correct note, which says, Jonathan F. came in with a bunch of new stuff. Peace. For today's artwork, I made another thumbnail duo illustration. Hope you guys like it. Keep doing what you do, and I'll keep praying for yins.
Love it. This is great. This appears on today's episodes. thumbnail. We love having these thumbnails go in, and just know that this is an encouragement to all the artists, even the children out there. If you want a way to really help out the show, we need a new version of Gons and I for every thumbnail. It's science. And so even if you're a child, draw a Basil, draw a Gons, send it in, no matter what you do, who you are. Go to canarycry.art to upload it. But here we have a great one. In the background is sort of the fog of war and a medieval battle. You see some guys, some spears, some helmets, the fog, the sun just shining through the fog. And in the foreground here, we've got the googly-eyed Viking Canary and the samurai Gons. Very nice. The Viking Basil looks absolutely fantastic and ludicrous. But this seems like it was modeled after a video game. I can't remember what the video game is, but it's a Viking with blue face paint with some two hand axes, one in each hand, some very specific Viking armor. Very well done. A little detail. We do have my appendix scar on the Viking there, looking very, very battle worn. Mm-hmm. Very cool. We've also got looks like the red outlining of a googly-eyed Basil with a googly-eyed cat on my head, on the sort of girdle, the girded, what would be that called?
It's belt like of the truth.
Belt, but the belt of truth, right? That must be from a former piece. It looks very familiar. Thank you, Sir Duff, for that. The Gons Samurai, you've got your praying hands samurai helmet on, which is hilarious. Very good.
Yeah, very good.
You're holding your katana above your head there.
He has the Kuyo symbol, which is the, if you see
that is the Shimura symbol, isn't it?
It's from my mom's side, so it's not the Shimura name, but it's my mother's side, the samurai family side. So yes, that is the crest that my samurai ancestors wore in battle.
Whoa, very meaningful. Thank you very much. I don't know if the googly-eyed Basil with the cat on the head is exactly what my Viking ancestors would have identified themselves with. However, Vikings famously were really into cats. They had a cat on every ship, and it was customary for the man to give the woman a kitten on their wedding day. So, very big deal. All right. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. That's it for the visual art, correct?
That is it. We do have some microfiction, I believe. I think Runk Smash came in with some new ones here that
he did. Did you put in the new one into the document?
Yes,
I got it.
I did.
Okay,
just did it. Okay, here we go.
Microfiction. Time. Microfiction.
Runk Smash.
Mom, what happened to Dad? Asked the younger of the two samurai to the regal lady standing in the doorway of the pantry. Her expression changes from stern frustration to a wistful sadness as she remembers the end of the good times. She sighs deeply. Oh, we've got a Gone storyline going on.
Oh no!
Can't wait. Thank you very much, Runk Smash.
Thank you, Runk Smash. All right, we got another one from. Do we have one from Stefan S? A new one?
Yep.
Stefan S.
Oh, I can't remember. No. This was the one from last time.
This was the one from last time, right? That's what I thought. I didn't think I saw a new one from Stefan S. Double check it.
It was risky enough for us to read it the first time.
That's true.
You don't need to. Double it up. Thank you, Stephanus, for your previous producership.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Look at all these great producers coming in with their time, their talent, or their treasure. They are a part of the paradigm shift. They are an integral part of what has caused the most important cultural shifts over the last 10 years. That is podcasting. And now, as we've seen podcasting, there's been attempt after attempt to co-opt it, especially using the sigil magic, the mind control of advertisers. But here we say no longer shall corporations be in charge of life and death for pieces of media. It's all of us banding together to make it work. Coming in with your time, your talent, your treasure. Go to canarycry.support to learn more. Or if you want to send in your art, you can go to canarycry.art. That's a URL, not an email address. canarycry.art to upload your art to the show. And if you have an article you'd like us to take a look at to put on the show, you can go to canarycry.report. These are all very easy, folks, very easy ways to get involved. And if you're of the fun. And with that, Gons, do you have anything you wanted to say before are we doing some sort of wrap up, or?
I don't know. I mean, I'm past my time, so there's that.
Yeah, you need to go pick up babies.
Things need to
but
happen.
Here's what I will say. I want to thank everybody who's ever produced since the first episode in 2012 until now. This has been, and some of you might feel like maybe this was a little bit of a self-indulgent episode, and that's okay. This was a big cathartic experience for Gons and I here. It's sort of a culmination of our 11 years now of podcasting. So we thank you for indulging us or letting us indulge ourselves. But we hope you saw some value in it. There's some big shifts happening. Adam Curry continues to be a big part of those shifts, and we can all feel it. All of us feel it. We are moving into a new chapter of what the future looks like. And so it really, truly, this is not just a slogan. This is not just a sort of sweet words. It is literally up to every one of us to participate in whatever the future looks like. And you can participate in it either by participating in independent value for value, or you can participate by staying a part of the former system. That would be really convenient to the powers that be. Staying a part of the former system, trusting the powers to create the new system, absolving yourself of responsibility for whatever the new system looks like. That would be the easy way out. So everybody who produces this show in whatever way they do, they are not only helping the show live, but they are making a statement to the powers, the principalities of the air that are currently ruling the earth, that we will not go silently into whatever next phase of darkness that they have planned. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Anything to say, Gons, before we thank the last people and head out?
I second all that, and yeah, it's been quite the journey so far. I'm sure we will see ebbs and flows as time goes on, and maybe we're maybe due for a little pump, It's been
Talking
quite
about crypto.
No, I'm talking about our sentiment.
This podcast.
This podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been a bumpy year, but it's been really a bumpy 3 years of a lot of volatility, I would say. And
yeah,
but that's not always a bad thing. The volatility gave us probably helped us get in front of a lot of new people in the last few years, and so we appreciate you if you're new, and if you've been around for a long time, then hey.
Yeah.
Come back for more. We're always around, and we'll just keep going until the Lord says to stop. So there you
until
go.
we don't. Yeah. And even treading water, in a way, is just preparing for whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
So you got to stay alive to experience whatever the next part of the plan is.
Don't
thanks
get
for
too
doing
high.
that.
Don't get too high on the highs, and don't get too low on the lows. You just got to stay right in that middle, that pocket.
Right. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Real quick, I want to thank the Clippies. Thank you, Clippies.
Clippy on those videos. Thanks.
That's right. Go follow the Canary Cry Clips channel on YouTube and Odyssey. And if you're someone with even the most basic video clipping skills, send us an email. Get in touch. We'd love to put you to work so you can start producing. And that's only possible because of the timestampers.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Timestamp. It's hard work. Timestamp.
Yep. And I want to thank producer Morgan E. for, I think, what episode is this? I don't even know.
688.
This is 688.
CCNT, technically, yeah. Or
Do we know who
165.
did timestamps for 687?
I believe it was either Jade Bouncerson or Morgan E. And I'm looking at it right now.
You think so? You think it was either one or the other timestamper we have?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Pretty good guess.
Jade Bouncerson.
Jade Bouncerson.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jade Bouncerson, for doing the timestamps for episode 687. It's an invaluable resource and goes into so much of our back-end processes. Thank you to Jam for the links. Thank you, Clank, for clanking. And other than that, folks, share the show. Share it with friends. Share it with your family. Share it with Aunt Sharon.
Yep.
And here's the thing. You can put on your social media. You can do whatever you want. But you can also share it in a new, exciting way that shows your skills, your independence, your the beauty that God has put inside you. You can use that all to share the show. And what a better way to share the show than to start another podcast. Start a podcast, make it the Canary Cry Fancast, send it out to all your friends. Canary Cry Fancast is certain to be a successful show in one way or another.
Breakdown, post-game breakdowns.
It's what we're missing. Here's the thing. I have started many side podcasts. And trust me, I get it's difficult to start a podcast. It's difficult to start it from scratch. It's difficult when you don't have an audience already. But if somebody were to start a Canary Cry Fancast, you better believe we would be pitching that podcast every single episode. It's low hanging fruit, folks. If somebody wanted to start podcasting and start the Canary Cry Fancast, trust me, you will have at least an automatic audience of like 30 people, which it took Gons and I like a year to get to 30 people. So you get a little bump.
Yeah.
Maybe a group can get together and do it, manage it through the Discord or something. Just saying, folks. That's one way you can share the show. You can share it any way you want. But other than that, we call it rattling cages. And all you got to do is walk right up to him, grab by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Gonzi, got any last words?
I don't know. We did it, Basil. We got Adam Curry on the show. It happened.
This is a big deal for us. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's supported us over the years, and we will continue to do our thing. But it's kind of nice to say thank you to the man who's, is even more responsible for what we're doing than I even realized. Like I knew he was responsible for influencing me and you and stuff, but way more.
No, I was struck.
Yeah,
I was struck during my rant about just how specifically that man is responsible for what's going on in our lives. I mean, obviously, pretty much all of our lives, since all of our lives is this podcast now, except for your children and such.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird that there's a single human being that you can credit for like the actual life you live day to day.
It's rare. It is rare. Yeah, maybe
Besides
this is similar.
I
was going to say, this is similar to maybe like the Pope, like 700 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Something like
that. Like everybody has to bow the
Pope. Excuse me. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Armageddon's on the way.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Bye!
From
solutions for the problems that he created. So step right up for the Great Reset. For the Great Reset. Hiding in the shadows, he's always behind the scenes. He's pulling on the purse string. He's got control of everything. He's got the solutions to the problems that he created. So step right up for the Great Reset. For the Great Reset. He serves his master with fervor. He's a Luciferian. He bound up and determined to bring us to an end. It's the final solution. Destroy the human race. So walk right up to the Great Reset. To the Great Reset. The Great Reset. There's only one way out through the door, but you'll need the code. 10, 5, 19, 21, 19. Or you can step right up for the Great Reset. For the Great Reset. For the Great Reset. For the Great Reset.
We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary, crime support.